Hi, my name is Anna Surovkova and I'm from the Czech Republic.
My name is Victor and I'm from Perth, Australia.
My name is Oindrila and I'm from India.
Hello everyone, my name is Aman Brijbhushan Tiwari.
Hey, I'm Kiran Panjwani, a third-year computer science student studying at DHS Super University in Karachi, Pakistan.
हेलो नमस्ते सत श्री अकाल आदाब मैं हूं मनीष कुमार बर्नवाल एंड आई एम फ्रॉम कोलकाता विच इज आल्सो नोन एज सिटी ऑफ जॉय इन इंडिया
In your local community, you get to connect with other students, you get to learn from other students, and you get to interact with more people.
What I'm looking for in the Student Summit, in addition to improving my technical skills, it's to be able to connect with other students around the world who are making an impact.
What I hope to get out of this summit is engagement and connection with other Microsoft Learn student ambassadors.
I am inspired to innovate by the slightest belief that my work can improve the work efficiency of fellow students and the state of my community.
Another thing that inspires me to innovate is the obvious need to make the world a more habitable place and make technology more accessible to everyone.
I am inspired by the current problems that we come across daily in our lives and how people come in to solve these problems, harnessing the power of technology.
I cannot wait for the Microsoft Student Summit because I know I'm going to meet more people, I'm going to learn more, and obviously I'm going to interact with people from across the globe, not only Kenya. Yeah, and I'm so excited. I can't wait.
So I hope you guys are really gonna have a great learning and awesome time here at Microsoft Student Summit. So enjoy.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Global Microsoft Student Summit. I am Khushboo Verma and today I'm joined by Scott. Hey Scott, how are you doing?
I'm very well, how are you?
I'm doing excellent as well. So what are we going to talk about today?
Well, I'm just excited to be here to talk to all the young people at the Student Summit, the folks that are early in career that are coming in today. We're going to hear from all kinds of folks about their journey into tech. And I'm excited that you and I kind of represent the best of Microsoft, both people who've been here a long time and people who are just getting started.
Yeah, that's so exciting, that students here are here to interact with their local student communities and hear from Microsoft leaders, cloud advocates, MVPs, and Microsoft Learn student ambassadors. So why don't we start with your journey into tech?
Well, I'm not sure. We should compare journeys, I think, you and I. So the first time I ever saw a computer, I was 12, and my grade 5 teacher brought a computer into the room that the entire room could share. So we didn't have individual computers, but we had one computer that we could all take turns on, and we had a sign-up sheet. We could say, I want to use the computer at 4 o'clock. When was the first time you ever saw a computer?
I think I was also in school at that time when I first saw a computer, but my first interaction with programming wasn't until I was in class 9th or 10th when I first got to know what HTML was, CSS was. I think that was my first interaction with computers. But I think the students here today who are joining us might have had, different experiences with computers as well. Some of them might have been introduced early on. Some of them might be having their first interactions lately.
And that's what's exciting, is that so many different people came into tech in different ways. Some people, their first computer might be a phone or a tablet. It might have been a laptop. It may have been one that was given to them, or it may have been one at the library that they would visit, like me.
Yeah. In fact, I remember when I was in school, I was least interested in tech. And today I am a software engineer at Microsoft. And I think communities have played such an important role in my journey, because when I entered university and I got exposed to these wonderful communities, especially Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador community, I got, exposed to such diverse set of opinions, such diverse set of ideas, possibilities to learn, and so many resources. So I no longer felt like I was restrained to any demographic or any university. I had the internet, I had all the resources, and all I had to do was learn. So what advice do you have for the students who are joining us today? How can they learn to the best of their capabilities and make the best out of the summit?
I think that you said it right when you said it was about community, right? Once you find computers, you find tech, the next step is to find your people. And your people might be based around your identity or your location. It might be based around your technology. So you might want to find your C# people, right? Or you might want to find your university, study group, and then spend time with them, whether it be virtually, like we are right now, or if you can, in person. When I was coming up, we found user groups and get-togethers, right? And being able to have just a dinner or a lunch with like-minded people to talk about tech is so important because it reminds us that we're not alone. And when our students from the Student Summit here perhaps come and join Microsoft in the future, they might initially feel very alone, like, okay, now I've made it, I'm inside, I'm at a big company, now what do I do? The way that you solve that is by finding friends and colleagues to work with, to study with, and for support. And that support is so important. And that's why it's great to have student summits like this to let people know that they're not alone.
I completely agree to that. And I think one of the best things about working at Microsoft is the growth mindset that, the company promotes. So it's like we embrace challenges. We are not afraid to try out new things or step out of our comfort zone. And this is something that I would also tell to my younger self, right? Someone who was absolutely afraid to go out and meet new people, try out new things, or, stepping out in uncomfortable positions and trying to learn something new and having that fear of being a beginner. But I think that here we have this growth mindset, and it means that, okay, we can embrace our failures and we can be a beginner at something. But if we rely on each other, if we go and ask for help, and if we network with the right set of people, then there's nothing that can't be achieved.
I'm curious, how do you ask questions inside the company and be not worried that someone will judge you because you're asking a dumb question? Because I don't think there's any dumb questions, and I want people to ask. But I'm curious, do you ever feel like nervous? I don't want to ask that question.
Oh, no, definitely not. I think initially I used to feel that, but I understand that the culture here is very supportive, and everyone who, joins straight out of college, it's definitely understandable that they have probably not worked on a certain set of technologies, but as far as they're comfortable with the basics and they have the curiosity to learn, they can figure things out. So I think most of us here are figuring things out every single day, and the peers here are very supportive. So if someone comes up to me and asks me for help, I would be more than happy to help them. And similarly, if I go to someone, they are always so supportive that I've never felt like, I am shy of asking questions or anything. And this is what I would suggest to, people who are here today as well, that if you're starting out, ask as many questions as you can, because as Scott mentioned, there are no wrong questions or no dumb questions.
Yeah, I think another thing that you said that I think is very important is understanding the basics. So like, what are the basics? I think a lot of folks, when we are learning in school, we focus on for loops and syntax and this language and that language, but we kind of forget about characteristics of computers. How much latency is in a system, memory, CPU, network. No matter what language you're using, no matter what system you're building, these things are all still computers. So understanding the basics, do you think that's a really important part of being a software engineer?
Oh, yes, definitely. There are so many technologies that I've worked on so far. And the only thing that I've understood is that if you are comfortable with the basics of one language, then it is very easy for you to switch between multiple languages. I remember when I was in university, I was so confused whether I should get started with web development, or should I get into Android development, or should I pick up machine learning? Because there are so many technologies and everything is evolving so fast that it's almost impossible to know everything. But one thing that I've learned so far in my journey till here is that if you're comfortable with the basics, if you understand problem solving, then there is no such problem that you can't solve.
Yeah, problem solving is a big important thing. And the fact that what's the difference between an early in career and a later in career person? Is it that I know more? It's actually the fact that I've been able to exist in this space for a long time. So when it seems like I know stuff, it's really that I've just seen it before. And that's what's great, because we want you, Khushboo, and we want our friends who are going to come and join us at some point in Microsoft to stick around for 5, 10, 20 years so that they too will have the gift of having seen it before. And the difference between an early in career engineer who maybe will go Google with Bing for the instructions and the answers. And someone who's been around a long time is just that I've seen it before. So I don't have to search because I'm like, oh, I remember 5 years ago when I hit that same error. And I want everyone to have that feeling of knowing the answer.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like there's so many things that even I'm getting comfortable with. So that is the thing that you just figure out in the process. There will not be any point where you'll have figured everything out. So it's the journey and you'll keep on figuring out things every single day. But Scott, I have one more question for you. What is some advice you would give to people who are attending today? How can they make the most out of this summit?
I would see if you can connect with some people. We're going to see folks on social. We're going to have opportunities to meet and chat with people. Find a natural opportunity to find your tribe. Find your group of people that are interested in the technology or the social change that you're interested in, and see if you can spend some time with them. Because when the summit's over, what happens then? Right? So maybe the summit happens and you can connect with your student ambassadors on the campus that you're at. Or maybe you go and join a local user group that isn't a student-based user group and like start to slowly enter that professional space.
Yes, I totally agree. Like even at the Microsoft Student Summits that I have attended as a Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador, the best thing that I found about it was the collaborations that resulted after the summit. So I meet people from different backgrounds, different universities, even different nationalities. And then the collaborations that come out of those events is something that I forever cherish because it gives me an understanding into how different communities operate. And I do understand that each local community has its own different set of challenges, problems, and their own, goals and visions. And the exposure that these events lead us to, I think it's wonderful. And I should think everyone should, leverage this opportunity to make the most out of it, network with the right set of people, and learn as much as they can.
Yeah. You're very wise, Khushboo, and I think that our friends who are here at the Student Summit can learn a lot from you and your journey. So I appreciate you bringing me along for the ride this morning.
Thank you so much for being here. And now let's hand it over to our local hosts.
Co-host with me, Mireille. Say hi to our lovely audience.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Mireille Tan. I'm currently an undergraduate student in computer science in the United States. And I really look forward to co-hosting this session together with Chris.
Fantastic. That was a really good keynote. That actually reminds me something really great that Khushboo said. There are no dumb questions. I couldn't agree more. Do you agree, Mireille?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like programming is not easy. Like for me, I took a really, really long time. So I just started out with like block programming back when I was 9 years old. And it took me many, many years to really get to where I am now, like being able to do syntax programming. And there are just so many languages out there. So there will naturally be questions. And I feel that really in order to learn, you shouldn't be afraid of the questions that you ask.
No, that I think that's a really, really wise sentiment. I remember my first computer even. I think it was a Commodore 64. Do you remember your first computer?
I would say my first so-called computer was actually a family computer, but that was when I was super young, so I do not remember. But I'd say that after that, it was really just using computers from schools, and I got my first laptop, which was a MacBook actually, back when I was 13 years old, to start like programming in Xcode and everything.
Very cool. Up next, we're going to talk about a very important subject. Mireille, do you want to talk through these questions?
Sure. So what everyone is seeing on the screen right now is our code of conduct. So before we want to let this event begin officially, we just want to remind you to please be respectful, be friendly, be professional, and be kind. Please respect others' opinions so that we can really make this event fun and enjoyable for everyone in the call. So right now, I'll hand it over to Chris to introduce our exciting jam-packed agenda for these next 3 hours.
Thank you so much, Mireille. And yeah, we've already heard the keynote from Scott and Khushboo. Really, really great keynote. If you missed it, please rewind from wherever you are, if you're on YouTube or any kind of streaming outlet. This is the segment about meeting your local hosts. My name is, as I said before, Chris Noring. I work for Microsoft on the educational team, and Mireille here is a fantastic Microsoft student ambassadors, of which we have many. After this segment, we'll be looking at another keynote, namely Dheeraj will tell us all about his journey into tech. Dheeraj is a student ambassador and also founder of his own company, so he can definitely tell you about technology from many different angles. And then I know that there's something that you're looking forward to, Mireille, right?
Yep, so that would actually be the career panel. So I've seen so many of my peers suiting up, going for career fairs because everyone wants to be successful in their career. So I believe that with this career panel, everyone can learn something applicable that really will guide them along in their tech journey. And afterwards, they have another thing which I'm looking forward to, which is the Imagine Cup launch. So as a student ambassador, I've seen so many of my peers from like Singapore, my home country, and really just all around the world, innovating, trying to make an impact with their abilities in technology. And it's just so inspiring, which is why I really look forward to the Imagine Cup launch that's going to come, along with the Imagination collaboration activity at 10:05. So what's next, Chris?
Yeah, so great that you mentioned Imagine Cup. I'm super impressed by Imagine Cup every single year. I think there are 3 or 4 teams that ends up in this world final, right? Every single idea is like, wow, I can't believe these folks are actually students. I think you mentioned the Imagine Cup launch, and there's also an Imagination collaboration activity in which we're looking at different pitches and how to make sure that those pitches are ready for Imagine Cup should you want to participate. And then we are about halfway, so we're going to let all of you have a 5-minute break. After the break, we will talk about what is the cloud, starring Vidushi and Vedant, 2 amazing student ambassadors who are telling us from very different angles what is the cloud and why should I even use the cloud and how will I be successful using it. And then at 10:50, we'll look at how we can launch into the cloud using 2 excellent tools, one of them being GitHub and the other one being Azure, and they really work well together. And I believe, Mireille, that there is a panel coming up. Why is that cool?
Yeah, so we have the Imagine Cup panel at 11:35 by Team Kapi. So I believe that they were the finalists for last year, and really it's such a great opportunity to find out how you can stand out. What are some tips and tricks for excelling in Imagine Cup? So look forward to that as well.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think it's great that you mentioned that when we are bringing teams back, they're able to tell us exactly what the experience is like. So we'll hear it directly from the horse's mouth. And then we are looking at closing the events. And by then we have been around for, I think, roughly 3 hours. So hopefully you have been inspired, you have felt our passion, and you have some ideas of your own how to keep on building, keep on innovating with Azure and the cloud. And we'd love to hear from you now in the chat. So please tell us where you're from in the world. We'd love to see what country you're from, what city you're calling in from. I think this is a North American segment, but we welcome you all from wherever you are phoning in, from wherever you are trying to connect on the internet to join us here today. So please type in the chat and let us know. Myself, I am calling in from London. So where are you calling in from, Mireille?
I'm calling in from Urbana-Champaign in Illinois, so hopefully everything works out. But I'm just reading through the comments, and there are people really from all over the world. I've seen people from Canada, from Mexico, from Pakistan. Really, it's truly amazing, just the variety we have in the audience today.
Yeah, it really feels like a global community, right? Pakistan, Canada, it's very different parts of the world, but you're all equally welcome.
Yeah, so
Next.
right before we get started, we just want to remind you to be prepared. So there's a little bit of pre-work to be done if you haven't done it yet. So first of all, you want to get sign up with log into Microsoft Azure. So the links will be posted in the chat. Some other things we want to remind you of would be to have a GitHub account, as well as preferably have VS Code installed on your computer or laptop. So this will allow you to follow along during one of the sessions later. But don't worry, this will only form a small part of the show. So if you can't get it out in time, you can always just catch that in the recording afterwards. So now handing over back to Chris to officially begin the Student Summit.
Great. And just a quick reminder, if you're signing up for Azure for Students, you do have credits in there. Make sure to use them. Make sure to innovate on Azure. So don't just activate, but engage. We'd love to see those apps from you. And next up, we got Dheeraj that will tell us all about his journey into tech. And I'm very excited about this one because we're talking about student ambassador, but also a person who's an entrepreneur who built their own business. So take it away, Dheeraj.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I am so excited to be over here. Thank you for having me. I'm just quickly going to pull up some slides. Is everybody able to see these slides? Just something in the chat would be helpful. Awesome. So I think they're up now. Well, thank you so much for having me again. I am super excited to be here. And I'm going to start by telling you just a little bit about myself. This is my journey into tech, but I think you need to know a little bit about me to know how I got where I am, at least. So to start off with, a little bit about myself. I've seen everyone is from everywhere around the world, and I'm just so excited to be able to meet and interact with all of you. I spent my whole life actually growing up in Uganda. And the reason I mention that is because growing up in Uganda and in even generally moving around Africa was so fundamental to building my own tech experiences and exposing me to such interesting things around the world. And that's really where it all started. After, growing up in Uganda, I decided to pursue my education and move to Canada for my undergraduate degree. I studied at the University of British Columbia, which is based in Vancouver, for those of you who may not know. And funny enough, I actually pursued and started off my education in finance. Now, I started off my career in finance because I genuinely loved numbers. That was something that I really enjoyed working with. And that's, when I started working with finance and numbers, I slowly started to look around and I saw data and I was like, whoa, there's a lot of numbers in data. There's a lot of interesting things happening in data. And so I decided to make the pivot into technology only because I saw how much of an impact technology can have for the world globally. But I'll share a little bit more about that later on. So to put it all in, a timeline, so to say, not that I want to put my life into one slide and into a timeline, but just to give you all a short sort of synopsis into what my life and what my journey has been into tech. And I'll speak a little bit about each of these parts. So as I said, my childhood, I spent a lot of time growing up in Uganda. And the reason that was so significant for me was because I was always surrounded by things that were changing very rapidly. When you're growing in in a relatively developing country and things are changing very quickly, you start to think about, well, okay, this is changing. Wow, it's changing so fast. Are we really putting like some sort of card in transport systems? And I never knew that, but in North America, it's so much more accessible. And growing up in Africa really taught me to be more observant. And that's one thing that I want to share with all of you. Whether you're looking to get into tech, whether you want to be an entrepreneur, the one thing is that be observant. Look around you, see what's happening. Because when you're actively observing, when you're noticing there's a problem here, there's a problem there, something doesn't feel right here, you will come up with the best solutions and you will build the best things. Whether it's using technology or other things, you will end up building something that you have observed is a problem. I initially started to get inspired, with technology when I moved to Canada. And that was because I started to see how much more development there was around the technology space. I started to see how much impact technology had when it came to, helping people in education, whether it was helping businesses grow, whether it was doing my own personal projects. And being able to get that firsthand insight, that firsthand experience was something that really inspired me to say, you know what, I want to use technology and I want to build something. I want to do something bigger. I want to, start maybe with a small project, but keep doing things with technology to create that larger impact. Now, when I first started at university, I was that very excited kid. I just wanted to start building projects and doing a lot of things. And I remember speaking to one of my mentors, and he said, you could build a lot of things, but it's really difficult to scale them, right? To take a team from being with 3 people, where you're just sitting on a coffee table and working on something, to being 100 people, and you're in a room full of people, and you do not know how to manage or handle them. And so one thing that really helped me understand that implementation, that scalability side of things, was getting some working experience. So I did a few internships in the banking and technology space at the Bank of Nova Scotia, and I did some project management experience at Lababraries, which for those of you who may not know, Lababraries is the biggest brewer in Canada, and AB InBev is a brother company in the US. So in those roles, one of the things that was really valuable for me was to see how are bigger companies implementing technologies to really transform the way that they operate? And it's easy when you're doing a small piece of code or building a small project, but when you want to take something and make it really big, it's so important to be able to get that exposure and get that experience to see how are huge organizations achieving this today. And that experience really helped me understand that. And then came my entrepreneurial journey. I thought, you know what? I love working at companies, but I needed to do something of my own. And I always worked with smaller projects. And, there was always something going on here and there, but I wanted to do something bigger. And, my dad was an entrepreneur. I always look up to him in terms of the work he does and the ability to actually start a business and take it somewhere. And that's something that has always inspired me. And so I decided to start my own company. So let me tell you a little bit about that. So my company is called Learn It, and Learn It is an e-learning platform with a vision to reduce failure rates in challenging courses. And I think when we're young, when we're in high school, when we're very young, we get to interact with a lot of fun things when learning, whether it's like Legos, whether it's like these new sort of apps that allow you to do a lot of fun learning experiences. But when I started to come to university and started to see, what's out there, I realized that, it isn't as fun as it used to be. And I miss that. I miss that it wasn't a fun experience. I miss that it wasn't an easy experience. And one thing that really hurts me is I wanted, is seeing students struggle through some courses. And I really wanted everyone to feel comfortable, to feel like, they walk into a course, they feel confident. And that's really why I started Learn It. So Learn It was built around this foundation of making education a more fun and interactive experience for students within Canada to start with. But now, we're slowly expanding throughout the world. Another interesting thing that I really want to talk about that's really core to my heart and very dear to me is Learn It Global. Now, the reason I mention this to all of you is because I want you to remember that whether you start your own project, whether you start your own company, there's always, you should always think about what is your bigger purpose, right? I would say dream big and go behind that dream, go and achieve that. And so Learn It Global is it's a non-profit side towards Learn It. And it's a very simple non-profit. It has one goal, to just make education more accessible in underserved areas. And that's it. I feel like, as you all are here, you're learning so much, and, that should be accessible to the world. And the reason that we're able to make it accessible is because of technology. You think about the pandemic, you think about these last few years, you think about so many things that have been able to be successful and achievable simply because of using technology. And one of our recent projects was actually in Ghana. And what we did was we spent time with a village, and we provided menstrual education, which is not very accessible in Ghana, in that particular village, to over 500 children. And in doing that, we started to realize that there's so much power behind creating an impact using technology. And so I'd encourage you all that whenever you start a project, whenever you do something of your own, think about what's the bigger purpose and how can I create that larger impact. Now, one thing that, this is all about Learn It, but I think what you don't see is how was it built? And a big part of how it was built was the Microsoft for Startups Hub. Now, the hub really helped us in it was a stepping stone towards taking something from an idea to making it a reality. And, there's tons of things that we use, and there's tons of things that all of you can use. But these are three things that we continuously use and that we really appreciate about it. The first is Miro. Miro, as a company that's built online, it was hard for us to work together. It was a real challenge. And we wanted to take our diversity into account. We wanted to take our perspectives into account. And so Miro allowed us to collaborate, to work together, to brainstorm together, to make solutions together. And that was something that was super helpful to us. AngelList Stack is, it's such a powerful platform because it's so fundamental to a business, but it helps in incorporating your business and with company banking. And lastly, Power BI. I am a huge believer that data is, driving decisions of the future. And I genuinely believe that Power BI has helped us fundamentally in making decisions that combine data and combine our gut. And so what I would tell you is that, whenever you're starting a project, whenever you're doing something, always be iterative. Make sure to test it out. Test it day one, test it day two. Get people's reactions, collect their perspectives, collect data, and combine your gut with that data to drive decisions to grow your project or to grow your business or whatever you're doing. Because in doing that, you'll be able to make decisions that are smart. You'll be able to be dictated by data, and that's really going to help you transform your business. Now, these are only some of the things that I've used, and I'm sure if you go into it, you're going to find tons of things. But I wanted to mention, these three particular things that are really so important when it comes to building your business, and especially with the Microsoft for Startups Hub. The first thing that I want to mention is that the hub itself is, they have this Discover platform, which helps you really, look at some online courses that will make you and help you build your startup in such an easy way. It will, whether you're just starting out with an idea or whether you're scaling your business or whether you're trying to, use Azure, or you're trying to use GitHub. There's so many things that you could do. And it's easy to get overwhelmed. But with Discover, you're able to sit down, learn a little bit, consume that information, and make decisions based on what you've learned. The second thing is the guidance. I was so blown away when I was able to hop on a call with an Azure expert, just talk to them and really try and understand how I can leverage these technologies for learning. And I would say that support, that community that it's built around, it is so important as you're starting out your career, as you're trying to build things, because you can't do it all alone. It's really challenging and you need people to support you. So even something as simple as being able to hop on a call, being able to just talk to someone, how can Azure help me? How can this technology help me? It is so powerful because you get to widen your perspectives. You get to think about these technologies and apply them to your business. And the last thing is that there's a place for everybody. And I get so many people asking me, I have this idea for a project and, I'm not sure what to do. Or I have this thing that I want to do. Or, I'm in a phase where I'm scaling and there's so much going on. With the Startups Hub, there's a place for everyone. And if you just have an idea about what you want to do, about you have this itch to do something, the only advice I could give you is go out there and do it. Because when you do it, you might fail. And that's okay. You need to realize that it's okay to fail when you're doing startups, when you're doing businesses, because you will learn so much. And you will learn so much that some things that you can't get in a classroom environment. And it's important to take that failure and embrace it and think of it as a learning outcome. I want to leave you all with just a few tips from my experience. And, I spent a lot of time trying to get jobs, trying to build out my career in tech and in finance. And so here's 4 tips that I really want you to take away. The first one is that keep networking. And when I say networking, I don't mean like just go and message everyone and just have, one coffee chat around like, oh, what do you do in your day-to-day job? I mean that really try and build a meaningful relationship with someone. Because when you build relationships with the people that you really admire, that inspire you, you will see how much more you learn from them and you continuously grow. The second thing is take some time to reflect and identify what is your differentiator and make sure that it's something unique. Something like data analytics might be, so valuable, but a lot of people know data analytics, right? So think about what it is so special that you can do that not many others can. The third one is that whenever you're applying for a position, whether you're applying to a job, whether you're starting your own company, whatever it may be, do some research and take the time to understand, whether it's the company, whether it's the role, whether it's your startup that you're building. Understand what it is that you're getting towards. And the last one is just practice, whether it's your interviews, whether it's building companies, whether it's talking, networking, whatever it is, the more you do it, the better you will get at it. And that's a promise that I can make all of you. So as I wrap up here, I'm just going to put these 2 QR codes because I would love to connect with whoever is tuning in. There's a QR code for Learn It itself, so if you want to explore that. And there's also my personal LinkedIn. I'll make myself available to all that's listening. If you want to reach out, connect afterwards, I am more than happy to do so. And to keep building, to keep meeting new people and sharing the advice and also learning from all of you. Because every time I meet someone, I'm able to learn something from them. And that is what I truly love about meeting new people. Thank you. Awesome.
And welcome back. That was such a great presentation from Dheeraj. I actually took a lot of notes because Dheeraj was full of one-liners, right? Data drives decisions. What a fantastic sentiment. Collect data, learn more about your customers. I mean, all of these are great, great advice, right? Not only for your startup, but actually in a big corporation such as Microsoft, it's very, very applicable. Embrace failure. What a fantastic thing to say, because that is true, right? The only time you fail is when you ultimately give up. So for every single time you fail, you learn something. So really, really great talk. Definitely rewatch Dheeraj presentations, and I'm sure you're going to get some new things out of it. And to learn even more about how you can start and grow your own business, we want you to have a look at something called Founders Hub. And in Founders Hub, there is a link here, Founders Hub Student Summit. This will be posted in the chat so you can all learn about starting and growing your own business. Thank you so much again, Dheeraj. And we have a new section coming up. Mireille, can you tell us all about it?
Sure. So actually, one thing that Dheeraj pointed out that I absolutely love was like how to get prepared, and like one of the greatest quotes I've heard actually came recently. It's about how really opportunities come at the intersection of luck and preparedness. So Dheeraj was talking about how you want to network, how you want to practice, and that's how you get prepared. So speaking about preparedness, one thing that a lot of us are preparing for as students would be how to get a successful career. So right now we have the career panel to help with that, and this is really, really important because, well, who doesn't want to have a job? So for the career panel, we have a wide range of speakers. We have Dheeraj. Dheeraj is coming back as a founder, so he's the entrepreneur. We have Antonella. She's a Microsoft intern. We have David, who is a Microsoft MVP, most valued professional. And we have Eleanor, who is a Microsoft software engineer. So regardless of where you are in your tech journey or where you want to be, I'm sure that there will be something that you can learn from this career panel to really just help you along the way. So now over to our amazing panelists.
Hi, everyone. I'm sort of going to be the moderator for this panel. First, I sort of want to go around with all of us to sort of say our experience. And we have a couple of questions that we pre-prepared, but I'm also going to be monitoring the chat. So if you guys have questions for us or questions for people individually, I'll be sure to look out for them and try to answer. So at least starting with me, I am a software engineer at Microsoft. I was also an intern and an Explorer intern. And my current sort of focus and expertise is in accessibility. So working to make sure that the products that I'm working on are accessible for people with disabilities or differing abilities. And I focus a lot on human-computer interaction. So does David want to go and say a little about himself?
Sure. So my name's Dave Patrick. As I mentioned, I'm a Microsoft MVP. They give that award for community service. So I've been doing a lot of community work with a group called Tech Girls, where me and my daughter, Sarah Patrick, do workshops for young girls that are middle school age girls that are getting interested in STEM. So we've been doing that for a long time, having a lot of blast with that. And I'm also an adjunct professor at University of Maryland, Towson University here in Maryland. So I work with students all the time. I'm always excited to see what ideas they're coming up with and help them in their journey into tech.
I guess I can go next. My name's Antonella. As they mentioned previously, I was an intern at Microsoft. I did an Explorer internship in 2021 and then a full software engineer internship in this year, 2022. And I'll be returning as a full-timer in December.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think I've spoken a little bit, so you might already know, but my name is Dheeraj, everyone. Hello, nice to meet you if you're just tuning in. I am the founder at Learnit. I have just worked previously in the finance, data analytics, project management space, and now I'm into entrepreneurship and technology consulting. It's nice to meet all of you.
All right. So we can start with some of the questions we have, but there was also a really good question I just saw about is there a place for technical writing in the tech industry? And what are the best tips to achieve a job or internship in that? So does anyone else want to like talk about technical writing if they've done that? Because I could speak about that. No. So one of the things is technical writing is actually incredibly important. As someone who works at Microsoft, people who write good documentation are the real MVPs. Like especially like working in a company where a lot of the code that you work on is so specific to your company. Like I think if anyone else here has worked in tech, you know that like a lot of the times that your job is learning how to Google what you don't know. But a lot of the times when you're working in a large company or something where it's some of the code or like the syntax or things are very your company specific. So the only way to know how to iterate or do something new if someone asks you to do a project that you've never learned how to do is to be able to look at other people's documentation. So it's something that you should be expected to as an engineer is to write documentation if you're doing something new or something that no one else has done before, so that engineers, you know, after you can like look and like iterate on what you've done. And so that's sort of, anyone else want to add on that, or should I ask?
I'll add real quick, you know, so you bring up writing, those soft skills are so important in tech. People sometimes think, you know, it's all about coding, it's all about being that tech head, but no, and if you can speak well, if you can write well, if you can, you know, communicate with different teams, that's so important. So don't neglect those skills. Soft skills are super important.
Okay, so one of the questions that we had is sort of what programming language should I learn or focus on? I think that's been talked about a little bit before in this summit, but does anyone else want to talk about that?
I think that's a trick question.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you say, oh, it's got to be C# or oh, it's got to be Visual Basic or Python or whatever, I would say, no, wrong. Right? It really, someone said in the earlier keynote, learning the fundamentals is what's important. And then once you learn the fundamentals, it's much easier to move between languages once you've got the fundamentals.
Absolutely. And I would add to that, if you're just starting out learning how to code, to really just pick one that aligns most with what you're curious about right now. So if you're curious about web development, then maybe try out JavaScript just so you can see that spark growing. Because if you are curious about web development, but you start going into, say, like data or Python or stuff like that, and you go down a track that you're not as interested in or curious about, then it'll add a lot more friction. So just start with what you're interested in, and then, like they said, you'll learn the fundamentals with that language, and you can pick up anything else later on.
Yeah. There are a lot of questions, especially for you, Antonella, on how to get an internship at Microsoft, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah. So usually you'll apply. So that's where it all starts. You apply to the internship, and you can connect with recruiters at hackathons and different events that they put. So that's a great way to network with recruiters, see what they are looking for, ask your questions, that kind of stuff. Then if you get a call back, comes the preparing for the interview portion, which is the scariest part in my opinion. And so for that, I would say really focusing on your fundamentals, on if you're doing a software engineer internship, your data structures and algorithms, practicing that, but also not forgetting about your soft skills, as David said, because that really goes a long way in your interview. What I always aimed to do during my interviews was really just have a good conversation. And so we would do our technical portion, and then when they would get into the behavioral side, my goal was always just to relieve the nerves. I would tell myself, if I can come out of this with having had a nice conversation that I enjoyed, then this will be a win for me, and whatever comes after, it'll be what it must be. But really sharing your interest and showing who you are as a person. I come from a background in fashion design, actually. So really just like, yeah, people would be like, oh, what? And so if you share who you are genuinely, and you're not just trying to put up the front of, oh, I need to pretend like I code 24/7, then you really come through in a different way and you're remembered more.
I can even sort of speak on that a bit more because I've been an intern, but I've also sort of done like training to like be an interviewer for people. And so one of the things, especially like when you're interviewing, especially like if I'm interviewing someone, which I haven't done a lot, but a lot of times we're just sort of like, if we're asking you a tech question, we're really just asking for your thought process. And so when you are like, so if you are answering a tech question, speak what you're thinking of, because sometimes I'm not expecting you to like finish, like be able to solve it in the short period of time. Sometimes like, you know, there might be times where you like don't know what the function is. And if you're just like, I would Google this if I did this. So we're just going to put in a placeholder for what I would Google and continue on. I'm just trying to see how you come up against solutions and how you solve them. So don't be as worried about like, oh my God, if I don't answer it in the time period, it's not going to work out. Like, we're just trying to see how you think. So if you're in an interview, just talk about what's going in your brain. Just like try to make me be able to see how you're thinking and how you're solving.
Absolutely. I can 110% vouch for that, because that was my experience during interviews too. And that's the advice I always give to the people is, if you have any moments when you're quiet, then you're kind of doing it wrong. You want to always be talking through your process. Even if you get stuck, talk about why you're stuck at that point and let the interviewer know, because that's also a way that you're allowing them to help you. If you're just staring at a screen and you don't say anything, they don't know where you're stuck and where they can guide you.
Great. So we also had another question that can apply to some of the things we've said is, what exactly are soft skills?
That's a very good question.
I can do my best. I'll take a stab at it, but I think, you know, soft skills are essentially, you know, if you think of something that you can't teach, it's hard to teach. That's how I think of it, you know. I think, you know, you can go and do a certification on, you know, Python, or you can learn Python, and anyone can learn Python, you know, if they do that. But I think soft skills are things that you can't like learn, and it's hard to teach, right? So things like, can you communicate in an effective way, right? Can you take something technical and make it sound easy for someone that's not technical, right? Those things, I think they're very valued, well, to start off with, but also if I was to define it, I would say, you know, they're not easy to teach, and they are something that are very like hard to replace as well. So whether it's communication, whether it's your ability to think through problems, your approach towards solving problems, and some of those things, just remember that some of those soft skills also get better with time, right? I don't want, like, you know, so I'm also like an introvert, right? And I think a lot of people think that, oh, introverts don't talk, so they're bad at communication. It's not true, all right? So unless you guys think but essentially, you know, it gets better with practice, and the more you put yourself in positions where you're using those soft skills, the better you will get at them.
I'll concur with that. It may be hard to teach, but definitely practice makes perfect, right? So I have a lot of my students do presentations. If you're a student and you're wondering, why do I have to present something? It's because we want you to practice your soft skills. We're not really trying to grill you, or you know, we're trying to help you practice your soft skills, your communication, answering questions. In fact, when I do interviews, going back to the previous question, one of the most important things I tell my students when they're in an interview is, remember, it's a two-way street. You're trying to interview them as much as they're interviewing you. So when you ask good questions, we're impressed with the questions that you ask. Don't be so much as, like you said, putting on, you know, trying to put on a facade. Be very authentic. And when we do presentations, I look for those kind of things. I tell people, we're going to ask you questions, and it's okay to say, I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to go Bing that answer, or I'm going to, you know, find it out, and I'll come back with some more information. So that practice in your soft skills is so critical. And I do encourage people to go out there and do presentations. Go find a local, you know, Microsoft has all these community events, the SQL Saturdays and M365 Fridays and things like that. I'm actually going to be a part of one tomorrow down in Orlando, SQL Saturday Orlando. They love first-time presenters. They love student presenters. My daughter Sarah actually presented when she was, I think, 18 years old at SQL Saturday Pittsburgh, and it was her first time. She was scared to death, but then I kept making her do it over and over, and now she's an awesome presenter. And again, it was practice made perfect.
Great. So I saw this one question a couple of times that I thought was hilarious. What career in tech can you see not dying in the future? And I think that like it'd be a good idea to like just talk about like the different roles you can have in tech. At least for me personally, like I am a software engineer because I tried being a product manager, and I would die. I would not be able to hold that. That's not something like, it's something I enjoyed. I really like being able to oversee a product. But for me, I am very like, I have those soft skills. I can communicate, I can talk, but I don't have a lot of the stamina to have a lot of those meetings and have your entire schedule just be meetings with other people and talking with other people. And one of the things I personally like as being a software engineer is I'm sort of given this code and I'm able to just go and work on it and do that. And so I don't have to do that as much. So that's one of the reasons why I picked software engineering over product management. But I also know that like there are so many different types of things that you can do in tech. You can be software engineer in like either security or front end versus back end, user experience, or you can be in product managing, or you could be an engineering manager, or you can be in design. Like there are so many different areas, and like finding ways to explore that, or like using the Explorer program. That's why I actually applied to the Explorer programs. I didn't know if I wanted to do product managing or design or software engineering, and that internship taught me that I didn't want to be a product manager. But like being able to like discover those different ways, because there's so many different things you can do in tech.
Yeah, and I think just a quick thing to add on there, Eleanor. I think a better perspective take is don't think about what's going to be the hottest tech or what's going to be the best. The way I like to think about it, I think you also mentioned it, is when you go into an experience, have an open mind, right? Have an open mind to learn things about yourself. If you don't like something, that's good, because you realize that you don't like it, right? There's no way you would have realized that if you didn't do it, right? So go in there, have that open mind, and never be afraid of being in an uncomfortable position, whether it's like, oh, I don't know the skill, I don't know if I can do it. Because when you're uncomfortable, that's when you learn like the absolute most. And that's my personal opinion. But I think that, always be open and keep that open mind throughout your internship or your experiences.
Great. So what about, what are some tips you have for successfully networking? I know, Daraj, you talked about like networking a bit in your presentation.
I'll say something smart, anyone can add on, but I'll say something that I often share is that when you network, right, know what you want to at least, learn from it. But the second thing is, remember that person you're networking with is probably just talking about their job half the time or doing their job half the time. I had one networking session where all we spoke about was football. And that was my best, my most favorite, my most memorable experience, because, that's how you build a relationship. You build a relationship by finding common things to talk about, having a good time when you talk to someone. And I'll say, don't overthink networking in the sense that, oh, I have to talk about the job. I'll say, do it, like, be yourself and let that show, and genuinely try and build a connection like you're talking to a friend, but also balance that out with actually know what you want to get out of it.
I'll add a tip real quick. You mentioned, when you're networking, not to try to, it's nice to be more natural and not to be kind of focused. I find it's great to network in volunteer experiences. So if you can find a place to volunteer, like I said, I volunteer with an organization called Tech Girls. When you're working the workshop, you're meeting other people, other volunteers from different companies, and you're making these, they're seeing you in action, and it's very natural because you're just helping and you're doing things, and you're not sitting there. Some of these events where you're walking around with like a pile of resumes and you kind of got your game face on, and that we don't want to see that. I'd rather be working with you side by side, or work in a booth somewhere at a Microsoft event or something like that. That's my tip. Is find I mentioned the SQL Saturdays. They're always looking for people to come volunteer, to come help work the registration booth or something like that. That's something students excel at.
Yeah, and I sort of like to add on to that, is not just like that, but also why networking is so important, especially like when you're working, is that like, at least for me, like I'm currently going to talk much about it, but I'm currently working on a feature and a project that nobody on my local team sort of knows how to implement. And so like a lot of my project is actually asking other people on other teams in other countries, because Microsoft spans a bunch of different countries. We have teams in a bunch of different places, and just like grabbing them and be like, hey, can you like have some time to like sit down and sort of talk to me about this? And I've started like compiling a list of people who are like good at answering my questions, don't make me feel stupid for not knowing some things, and like will like take time out of their day to like just talk about things. And then also being on the other end of that, of having people ask me questions and be like, great, cool, so then I can ask you about things. And like networking has now become like so important to my job, because so often I'll come across something that I don't know how to do, and like I said earlier, like there might not be a way to look for it on Google because it's so company specific. And so you need to find other people, because there's someone at the company who knows. So I had to spend a lot of time getting over my fear of asking people for help and making that not seem like there was something like I didn't know what I was doing, so I was a bad engineer, but actually that makes me a good engineer to be able to know where my limits are and being able to go and find people who can help me improve. So it's important not just for when you're looking for a job, but also when you're in a job. Okay. So another question is examples of good questions to ask a potential employer.
One I get all the time during my interviews, when they ask this question, I'm like, okay, is when they ask about the team. What team? Who? How big is the team? What's the diversity of the team? Who? Is it made up of project managers, other developers, other data? So when you take a genuine interest, when you're thinking, and this is the tip that sometimes you've heard, is start talking about yourself in an interview as if you're going to start the job tomorrow, as if you're already in the job, and that way you'll show how interested, engaged, and that's what I look for.
Yeah, that's what I've seen works best when I've been doing internships, interviews for internships, is really coming in with questions that you've thought out before and that are, like you said, specific to like the team that you're being interviewed for, or what you sort of projecting to what your role would be if you were to be accepted and stuff like that, so that they see that you're already seeing yourself in that position and you're not just like, oh, I want Microsoft because it's Microsoft,
Yeah, and just to quickly add to that, I think, one thing I do, which I think has given me both good and bad, but I'll say it either way, is when I was interviewing, I used to go to the annual reports of the company. And I used to research. I'm like, I can't mention the name, but I was interviewing for a company, and they basically rolled out a project and they forgot one state. Like they didn't roll it out in one state. And I went in and I said, look, this is doing really well everywhere. And I saw that in your annual report. Why did you skip this one? And the interviewer looks at me and he says, I don't know. And I think that's in a good way, because they even haven't thought of it, right? So sometimes when you do your research, read the news, right? The area that you're focusing in, look at the annual reports, be curious, ask those simple questions. Why not? Or why is it like this, right? And sometimes those questions, the moment you see your interviewers thinking about the answer for long, that's how you know you've asked a good question.
Mm-hmm. My go-to is always, what is your work-life balance like? Because especially in the job, there's a lot of things that you look for when you're like trying to look for a job. And a lot of things that we look for is like salary and benefits, but there's also so many other things with the job. There's also like what level of stress you're going to have to deal with, what level of and whether that works for you, because everyone has a different way that they work best, a different way that they want to, use their job or utilize it. And so when you're looking for a job, it's not just for them to interview you, you're also interviewing them. You're also seeing if they're a good fit for you. And so making sure to think about that as well, as you're kind of interviewing each other to see if you're the right fit for each other. And so don't just think about questions to make you look good for them. Make sure that you're also thinking about what you need out of that.
Yeah. And I just, not to change the subject, but I saw a question that was really good, and I thought we should talk about. David asked, is age a factor to start in the tech industry? And it just spoke to me so hard because I'm 30 years old. I'm about to graduate this semester and I'm just starting my career. And so that always really resonates with me when people think that they're too old or that it's too late for them or stuff like that. If I had thought that it was too late, I wouldn't have accomplished what I have so far, and I wouldn't be on the path that I am now. So it's never too late. I also have had classmates that are in their mid-30s and have kids already, and they're switching, and even later on. So if it's something that you're curious and interested in, you should never hold yourself back because of that. And always think of it as you're not starting from scratch. You have this whole other set of experiences that they may not be in tech. Mine weren't at all. It was fashion design and graphic design, but I was able to reframe all of that. I had done, for instance, I had a role at an art magazine, and I used that to frame it as I had leadership experience. I had been able to work in teams and to run this group. And so there's always a way for you to sort of flip the script and really reframe your background.
All right, great. I think that's all the time we sort of have for today. So thank you so much to all the panelists. Thank you to everyone who was asking questions. I know a lot of us have I know Duraj has his LinkedIn, so feel free to reach out. And I'm going to pass it back off to our local hosts.
All right, so thank you so much to our amazing panelists. We certainly learned a lot from that panel. Chris, is there any piece of advice that you'd like to re-emphasize you think is super important for our audience out there?
Yeah, in fact, there were a lot of advice in this session. I love this career panel, by the way. I love the fact that we're talking about professional or sometimes called soft skills early on, because here's the thing. If you only learn how to do the tech part, you're going to maybe pass the interview. But as you grow your career, you need the soft skills. And soft skills is about communication, right? It's about empathy. It's about conveying your ideas clearly. So please do not hold off on learning how to communicate with other teams, with your managers, with your peers, and do so in an empathic way. So for me, that's one of the bigger takeaways. But I also loved what Eleanor was saying there about their being vulnerable. They're seeing the fact that you got limits and you actually have the guts to ask other people, because that is sometimes hard to do. So did you have any takeaways, Mireille?
I think certainly the soft skills aspect, because I've met a lot of people whom they seem to have this stereotype that if you have a career in tech, it's mostly going to be sitting alone in an office programming, but it's really not like that. You need to know how to interact with people, and as Duraj mentioned, really just thinking about the broader things. So being observant, making an impact, that's all really, really important in a career in tech as well. So speaking about a career in tech, if let's say you want to begin your journey or continue your journey with an internship or a career at Microsoft, you can go to the link that's currently on the slide, so careers.microsoft.com, where you can really learn more about opportunities for students and graduates. So for example, in the chat, I saw people asking, where can you have an internship from? Well, you can find your answer at this link, and you can also find many more student opportunities. For example, how to become a student ambassador, or how to participate in Imagine Cup, which brings us to our next session, which is the Imagine Cup launch. So as I mentioned previously, I absolutely love the Imagine Cup. I've seen so many innovative ideas come out of it, whether it be related to accessibility or education, which are both aspects that I'm really interested in. So right now, we'll hand it over to Pablo, who is going to officially launch Imagine Cup 2023.
Hello, my name is Pablo Veramendi, and I'm the Global Director for the Microsoft Imagine Cup, and I'm thrilled to be at the Student Summit to announce the launch of the 2023 Imagine Cup. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Imagine Cup, it is a global student developer competition where students just like you bring their world-changing ideas to life using the power of Microsoft Azure. Over the years, we've seen incredible solutions, from artificial intelligence to bionic arms, to innovative learning platforms and innovative remote health platforms. It's incredible to see what students bring every year to the competition. And at Microsoft, we truly believe that every student can be an entrepreneur, and we provide you the tools, the skills, and the platform to bring your dreams to life. All these students started out in the same place you are today, finding out about the Imagine Cup for the first time. If you were to ask them if you should participate, the answer would be a resounding yes. You know the challenges that your community faces, and you can bring solutions to that using technology. This year's competition has 4 categories: Earth, Education, Health, and Lifestyle. And it's up to you which category you want to compete in. Students 16 years or older from across the globe form teams of up to 4, and they come up with a 3-minute pitch, and they come up with a proof of concept for their Microsoft Azure solution to show to the judges to be evaluated at their national finals, regional finals, or online semifinals. And the top 3 teams move on to the World Championship. At the World Championship, those 3 teams are vying for the Imagine Cup itself, as well as $100,000 in cash and mentorship session with our chairman and CEO, Satya Nadella. I've been in that room where Satya is speaking with those students, and it's incredible to hear the advice he has for them. It's also incredible all the supports that you get along your journey. We have mentorship, we have Azure credits for those that move on to the competition, and we're partnering with our friends at Microsoft Startups in the Founders Hub, so you can continue your journey as an entrepreneur with them in the Founders Hub. So we're really thrilled to bring this competition to you this year. You can register today at imaginecup.com. You can follow us on social at MSFT Imagine on Twitter and at Microsoft Imagine Cup on Instagram, and see all the amazing things that students are doing using Microsoft technologies. But the supports don't end there. When you register for the competition, you get access to a whole slew of technology content. You get a training curriculum on GitHub where you can learn how to take your project from 0 to 1, how to come up with an idea, how to form that team, and how to bring that project to life and what technologies you should use. We also have a Discord community where you can join and ask questions to the team at Microsoft. There's mentors on that Discord. You can also find your teammates if you don't have any teammates at the moment. So it's really awesome, all the tools and all the opportunities that are afforded by participating in the Imagine Cup. And again, that chance to compete on a global stage, to be part of this incredible competition is something that you shouldn't pass up. So register today at imaginecup.com, and I can't wait to see what you bring to the Imagine Cup this year.
Thank you, Pablo, for launching the Imagine Cup 2023. So here's the link for more details about the Imagine Cup if you want to stand a chance to innovate, make a huge impact, and all the while gaining like technical skills, soft skills through collaboration and everything. So one thing that often comes up whenever we have a competition like this or hackathons or really even just a school project would be, all right, I know kind of what I have to do in terms of the technical aspect or what I want to do, but how do I come up with an idea? And oftentimes I think actually having the idea is quite important because you need to know what kind of impact you want to make. So Chris, how can our next session help with, well, this whole idea generation, this brainstorming process?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we have our next segment called the Imagination Collaboration. So this is all about coming up with pitches, understand what makes a good pitch, right? Because it's not only about having that idea, but framing it in a way that it makes sense to others. Because you might have a perfect idea, but hopefully by listening to our fantastic folks here, Evelyn, Manuel, and Shash, you will get some inspiration of what a good pitch look like and be brave enough to take this into Imagine Cup. And I hope, I think I speak for both of us, I hope that you're brave enough to do so. So definitely follow us along on this Imagination Collaboration segment.
Thanks. Hi everyone. I hope you're having a great time. My name is Evelyn Arias. I'm from Mexico, and I'm a Go Microsoft Learning Student Ambassador.
Hello everyone, my name is Manuel Ortiz, and like Eve, I am from Mexico, and next to me is...
Hi, I'm Shashidhar. I'm from United States. I'm a Microsoft Learn Gold Student Ambassador as well, and welcome to the Student Summit. Thank you.
Okay, you may be wondering what we are going to do, so let me tell you. We are having this activity called Imagination Collaboration, where the main idea or the main goal is to create an idea pitch that solves a real problem for a real user. So maybe you can change the slide, please. Okay, here we are. We are going to create an idea pitch that is going to solve a real problem for a real user. So we are going to start with this, okay? Manuel, can you please start with the next slide?
Yeah, sure. We know we all have great ideas, And be able to show your ideas to the world will probably be a challenge for most of us. For me, it's a challenge. We will do a design thinking to make user creativity to solve problems in a different way, thus optimizing the results to be able to land the ideas in the right place. Design thinking is approach us to use a practical and a creative problem solving. It's based heavily on the methods and process that designers use, but has involved from a range of different fields. For example, architecture, engineering, and business. Design thinking can also be applied to any field. It doesn't need to be specifically design, but it is not. But it is not all. There is something more important, and this is Shazit going to tell us about the empathy.
Okay, so you saw a problem, then you came up with a solution, but then one main thing which comes up next is like understanding how the solution works. Even in the Dheeraj session, he has told us about how he has come up with a solution because he had to come up with a solution which can be used by many users and at a place where finance was an issue. So he had to create a solution which is financially feasible. So this is kind of empathy, understanding the users' needs, understanding the how feasible that is, and if the solution can be built, if it can be built, who can use it, and if every user can use it, or if there are any users who cannot use it, how can we make them feasible to them. So all this come under empathy, understanding like in which way we can come up with a solution which is best used by everyone. So we should not be creating a solution like which is only limited to certain users. So always trying to come up with all the possible users and then trying to create the solution in such a way that it's useful for everyone and understanding their needs, and it also solves the problem of all the users. So these are some of the points which we want you to keep in mind and which are useful for while you are coming up with a solution. So do come up with a great solution, and we are looking forward to what are great pictures you're going to come up with. Thank you. Not this slide.
Well, now we will start with an activity. I'm sharing my screen. Can confirm? Yeah, awesome. Well, we have a great activity to develop your ideas. For this activity, we invite you to participate in a Menti where you can answer some questions. You can scan the code displayed on the screen or connect the code displayed in here, yes, into the code. We will give you a few minutes to join for participate. Don't be afraid. Difficult questions will not come. Así que take care. So in the activity, we will be talking about pet lovers. We will answer 3 different questions to see how we can use technology to help them. The goal is to find the key ideas. We will show you some questions, then the question, another question. On the screen, I will have to answer with the key ideas, and we will be talking about your answers, right? And now I invite Evelyn to support us by reading the first question. Evelyn?
Yes. Hi, guys. We want you to participate, feel comfortable doing this activity. Okay, so we are going to start with the first question. What task do pet lovers need to complete? Maybe it could be feed them properly because that's important for our pet, or giving them plenty of love. Please tell us what task do a pet lover need to complete. Okay. I don't know. Another example can be keep them safe. Give them a regular exercise because I really feel weird if I don't exercise every day. So I think that's important for our pet. I don't know, Shashid, Manuel, do you think of any other task that a pet lover needs to complete?
Yes, I think feeding the pet is the most important activity that owners they have. I think it could be having suitable environments for pets, maybe. And what about you, Shazid?
Yeah, I haven't had a pet in my past, but I have seen many of my friends having pet and taking them for a walk, feeding them, grooming. Yeah, all these were like the common things. Apart from this, they also like love and care. Yeah, I mean, showing love and care, giving pets some time is very important. Is what I feel, because you can't just have a pet and uh, leave it like that. Spending time with pets is very important. And I see other things coming up like teaching tricks. Yeah, that's an interesting thing, like teaching your dog or cat, whatever that is, different things to jump, to crawl, and to do some other things when you tell something. Yeah, interesting. Let's see what other answers will be coming up. And how is your have you ever had any pet, Evelyn or Manuel? Or you never had any pet?
Actually, yes. I have a cat and a dog, so I'm really careful with my pets. I love them a lot, so I just treat them like my own child.
Yeah, and attendees are answering like roaming, feeding, walking, attention. They are teaching tricks. That's cool, eh?
Even the dental health, I think it's so important for pets having these hygiene habits. So I think that can be another answer for this question. Do you know anything else you want to talk about pets?
But so let's see, what are the options a person can have for a pet apart from the common one. Like first thing that comes up to my mind when you talk about pet is dog or the cat. And what else can be a pet apart from cat or dog? What do you think?
Okay. Manuel, do you have any pet?
Okay. Yeah, I have a very beautiful cat. His name is Luna. In English is Moon, and she's very kitty, precious. I love it. Well,
Talking about pets, I got mine here.
That's cute. What's the name of that?
Mocha,
Mocha.
like the coffee drink. Mocha.
well, we pass to the next question. The question is, what difficulties might a pet lovers encounter? Well, I think it could be something related that they can find exact size of clothes for their pets, or they don't know the right food. I have a beautiful cat named Luna. My problem was in the moment that I didn't know what the right food was for her, because the food varies according to the type of pet and its age. So here is I giving you some examples. Do you have another difficulty do you encounter with your pet, for example, Evelyn?
Mm, Maybe when they got a little bit sick. With cats, it's a little bit difficult finding like the um, correct veterinary vet. So I think that's really like difficult for cats.
Yeah, sure. And the people say they're managing multiple pets, bathroom accidents, a bite. It's the most common difficulty. Freedom, understanding their difficulties, like they are in pain, dietary constraints, and sometimes the dietary is the important one. Yeah.
Well, actually, getting a bath to a cat, that's too difficult.
Ah, yeah, they are
you,
afraid for a water.
that's difficult. You finish with a lot of scratch on your body. Well, the first time that I bathed my cat was too difficult for me.
Yeah. And then their safety, parents don't allow, understanding them. Yeah,
Parents.
take note to the answers to make a great idea. And for the last one, I need Shasi, to help me to read the last one?
I guess we can wait a minute, like till we
Okay.
finish this thing. Yeah, we can. Let's
Yeah.
see what are the answers they're coming up. Understanding them, their safety. Yeah, like having pets and keeping them safe is a big thing. They just don't listen to us. As go wherever they like to, and yeah, sickness, injuries, bite, checkups. I guess you both understand these answers well than I do because you both have a pet, unlike me. Understand.
Someone said grooming cats. Yes, that's too difficult.
Yeah. The I'm with you, Evelyn, with the to pets or cats. That's very difficult. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, that's so difficult.
Well, we pass to the next question, Shas. Can you
Yeah.
help me read? Yeah.
Okay, so we have seen pets, then we have come up with what difficulties might a pet lover encounter. So you have read this. Can you change the slide? Yeah. So now that you have thought of all the problems, first question, then the second question came up with difficulties. Then the third part comes where you need to use the technology to solve this difficulties. So just now you have thought about the difficulties. So now let's see like what are ideas you can come up with to solve the difficulties. And we have wonderful technology with us. So bring in your answers. Let's see. I wanna read all the answers for this question. Okay, we can switch to whiteboard.
I I have an example. I think you can use IoT to automate anything. For example, I think you can use Microsoft Azure to using IoT Hub, and you can send some data to open the dispenser in the right time to get the food out. This is this is an example. Do you have another one?
Yeah, I see that some good solutions coming up on the whiteboard as well, like keeping track of checkups. Just like we keep track of our checkups, like human checkups, it's good to keep track of your pet's checkup because there were many difficulties where I have seen like sickness, injuries, and all. So I feel like if you keep track of checkups and take them to the doctor frequently, we don't have to worry about checkups. And there is app to remind you to order food. That's a good one. Uh, what other problems or technologies you both want to have, like after facing the problems?
Okay.
Evelyn.
Maybe, well, actually, keeping track of our checks, I think it's important. Something we need to do because actually, my vet gave me like a paper sign describing what meds do he give to my cat. So I think that's important to stop using these papers. I don't know if you think something different.
There are some other things. App to remind you, automatic feeding. App to help schedule grooming. That's interesting. Tracker for feeding, health monitoring. Everything is on artificial. There's something on it. Manuel, what do you use any app to take care of your pet?
Yeah, I will use I will use a Microsoft Azure to automate my IoT links to the pet dispenser. Yeah, to
That's
because I need to go out to the school, to the job, it's something else, and I am not in the house to put my pet. So automatically the gates to the dispenser to get the food out in the right time. It's a beautiful thing for to me.
Yeah, it's important to always take care of them and feed. At times we forget our pets in our busy time. So I guess it's good to have some apps or kind of a thing which can remind us the things we need to do for our pets as well.
Uh,
App to monitor. Yeah, continue.
no, Shaz, can you tell us what need to do now with all of these ideas?
Oh, okay. So you have got the problem, solutions, difficulties, and all. What we want everyone to do is we have one more slide coming up in the Menti. So we want everyone to go out there, put your pitch, and we'll be reading out a couple of pitches at the end of this summit. Like Chris, our host, will be reading out at the end of this event, and we'll be selecting 2 or 3 best pitches from all the pitches we get. And we have like till the end of this summit, will be we'll be taking up the pitches and we'll be selecting them. So you have time for that. Come up with great pitches. We are waiting for your pitches, and we are excited after seeing the solutions and the difficulties that we just saw. You just have to go to Menti, and this is where you need to submit. We also have some examples pictures if you want to see. Can you please switch the slide to the PowerPoint? So if you want to not this, there were a couple of ideas. So okay, I can give you an example. So you might be thinking if you are going out and you need to hire a pet, you need to hire someone to take care of your pet. So why do that? Use technology, and we can build an app where we can find your previous slide. You can hire a petless pet lover nearby your area. So you can just leave your pet by them and you can go out, and you don't need to pay for a person who has to take care of your pet. That is one of the ideas which you can pitch. Like that is one of the example of a pitch. And here's another example. Finding a compatible companion for your canine can be tricky. There are so many different breeds with different behaviors that might not mesh with your furry friend. With our app Companion Pup, you can take a picture of a local dog and detect its breed to find out key characteristics and see if they are your dog's new best friend. So this is like another example where you have explained your problem and then you come up with a solution. So this is how we want your pitch to be. So bring it on, bring on all your pitches. We're excited to see your solutions and the problems you see. Let's see. I hope you had a wonderful time. Have a great summit.
Thanks, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this activity, and I hope that this is so useful for you in the future, or maybe now. We don't know.
We are very happy to share some time with you. Not everything is ready now. Take a break, and you will see your ideas will be to emerge and gradually grow up. And Shaz?
I hope to see the great solutions. This is how you might come up with an Imagine Cup solution as well. You never know. So bring in your solutions. We'll be waiting. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much to the 3 student ambassadors for leading us on this interactive activity. So now, Chris, do you want to show the next slide? So now we're about halfway through the summit, which means it is time for a 5-minute break. But please stay tuned because in the second half, there'll be tons of opportunities to learn really just how to upskill yourself in technology. Okay, welcome back, everyone. We hope that you had a good break. Remember to stay hydrated and everything. So, Chris, do you want to tell us what's going to happen for the second half of the session?
Yes, thank you so much for introing me. And yeah, we will definitely hear about what is the cloud and how can I make it work for me. But before we come as far and talk about all the upskilling session, I would love to hear more from you in the audience. So please enter what your favorite snack food is. Mireille, do you have any favorite snack food?
Oh man, I guess right now I'm a little bit into like those Japanese biscuits with a layer of something inside. So there's like matcha, there's cheese. It just tastes so light. And it's not the kind of biscuit that will make me feel dehydrated. So I guess that's a little bit of like what I'm into right now. How about you, Chris?
Well, I actually recently discovered a Filipino ice cream. I think it's what's called a bilog. It has this purple ice cream inside of it, but it's like a hot bun with ice cream in it. Did you ever have it?
No, actually, but that sounds pretty interesting. I'll go look into it.
Yeah, I'm actually very blessed to live in London, right? I got the food over the world in one place. Speaking of which, I've actually been to Singapore. That's where you're from, right?
Yeah, so in case you didn't know for our audience, so I'm actually an international student right now. I moved to the US about 2 months ago and I actually came from Singapore. So I love the food back in Singapore, but I wouldn't really consider some of what we have snacks. The thing I like the most would probably be like actual meal. So like we have really, really good rice there. We have chicken rice. That's standard Singaporean food. But yeah, it's like hawker food. So it's like kind of like street food in some sense, but it's cheap and it's good.
To be honest, in a sense, Singapore reminds me of London. I remember being there in 2009, right? There was like India town, Arab town, all the places over the world you can
Yeah.
imagine, and also the Singapore kitchen, of course, right? So,
Yes.
you're not going to go hungry in Singapore. I can
Yeah, and
assure
there's
you of
a
that.
huge variety of food because we are a very multiracial country.
Yeah, very cool. So, right, another question to you all in the audience. What words do you associate when we say the cloud? So please enter all your comments, all your thoughts when someone says the cloud. Is it fluffy? Is it white? What is your association? Mireille, do you have any answers to that one? What do you think about when someone says cloud?
All right. So if you ask me like maybe 10 years ago, I would just say like fluffy. But right now, I think I've been so immersed into it. The first thing I think of is actually Azure. So that's how deeply rooted I am in like using Azure for like a ton of applications, I'd say. How about you?
Well, it's interesting you should say that, but despite the fact that I've been working with the cloud for many years, I still think of something big and fluffy like cotton, right? But if I were to take on my business hat, I'd probably think scalability, right? That you no longer need to care whether you're on one computer or several millions, right? You got the scalability for free, and so we're also going to hear a presentation also with the fact that you are all using cloud probably in your everyday life. So I'm kind of curious to hear about that one.
Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Welcome to the Student Summit, which is in partnership with Microsoft Reactor. Today, we're going to be seeing what cloud and Azure is in a very, very interesting manner. The session is going to be conducted by myself, Vidushi, and Vedant. A short introduction of myself. I am a Gold Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador from India, and I'm pursuing my bachelor's in computer science and engineering, which is specialized in big data analytics.
And about me, I'm Vedant. I'm a grad student at University of British Columbia. Here in Vancouver, Canada, I'm pursuing Masters of Sciences in Computer Science. And yes, I'm a Gold Student Ambassador here at Microsoft. Thank you.
Awesome. So let's dive into what cloud is. We're going to be looking at an interesting scenario here to understand on the way about what cloud is and what are its advantages. So let's imagine you have a dog. So this dog right here is going to be very famous to a lot of people, and also has won many awards. He's a golden retriever and his name is Tucker. So you have a dog and the dog's name is Tucker. Um, Tucker always likes Cheetos, wants more Cheetos, and never gets full of Cheetos. But Now the condition here is that you just have one photo of this goodest boy. Um, so this is a really cool photo of Tucker. He's trying to float in the swimming pool. You're scared what would happen if you lose this picture. You just have one photo of Tucker and you really want it, but what happens if you lose it? So in order to prevent losing the picture, you actually upload it onto your computer and on a social media, where in this case, assume that Tucker has uploaded it on Twitter. So this is what it looks like. There's a picture, and now you can view the picture on your phone, on your laptop. Anyone can view it on his Twitter handle. How did this happen? You actually just uploaded your image to a cloud, and without even knowing what cloud is, you just performed an action. So cloud is used in everyday life. You and me every day, all of us use cloud in multiple actions. So is this what it looks like? Is Tucker's image actually floating on a cloud? um, so it's actually inside a data warehouse. This is where Tucker's image is. So a data warehouse, in simpler terms, is going to be a collection of a lot of PCs, a lot of servers, and this is where these image gets stored. And a data warehouse could be all throughout the globe. So it can be anywhere and everywhere, and we can choose to keep our documents or pictures or whatever we upload to the cloud in a certain kind of a data warehouse, or just keep it anywhere in the world. So now, a few advantages of actually uploading the picture onto the cloud is going to be that there's very high availability of the picture. So you can actually access it on a laptop, on an iPad, and also on phone. So now that you've uploaded it to cloud, it's easier for you to access it across multiple devices. Coming back to the old question of what happens if I lose the picture, you actually have it on multiple devices now. You can view it anytime, anywhere, which brings me to the availability that you can be accessed on when you're at home, when you're riding in a bus, or let's say when you're working out or in an office. You might just miss Tucker anytime, anywhere, so you have his image readily available in cloud for you to access. This is the first advantage, that you can look at your documents anytime, anywhere. Next step is going to be the reliability advantage. So your picture was on the laptop, Tucker's picture was on your laptop, but what if an alien came and took away your laptop, or you just don't have access to it, or someday the laptop just decides that it does not want to work anymore? What are you going to do? So now that you upload your image in the cloud, it is very reliable, and now you can access your image from anywhere, anytime, and this reliability is going to be maintained by permissions that are granted to your cloud service, and companies have their own securities. The cloud that's the company which has owns the cloud provides a reliable connection for you to store your documents securely. And so reliability here is, if in case there's one of the data warehouse that goes down, the other warehouses are going to give you the documents or the resources that you wanted. So that's how reliability works on a cloud. It's not that your image is not going to be accessible if the data warehouse is down. It depends, and it's going to be accessible based on the image in multiple data warehouses. So it's going to give you the resources from wherever it's possible. The third and the greatest advantage of using cloud is going to be the accessibility and sharing advantage. So you can share your the image easily with your friends and family, or whoever wants to look at Tucker. So they can either create links or just share a folder with them. And just like you and me, we upload multiple documents on OneDrive. Once we do that, we can easily share the document with someone on a link. We can collaborate on a link, or just share the folder, share the file via an email. There are multiple methods. All of this is possible only because of cloud. If there was no if you did not use cloud, then You just have it in your laptop, then you might put it in a pen drive, give away the pen drive to someone. It's a big hassle. So these are the top advantages, but it's not just you and Tucker. Let's look at a bigger picture. We need the cloud for multiple reasons, and it has a lot of advantages. Biggest of the biggest companies use cloud for their work, for their collaboration, and also have their own cloud services. For example, Microsoft has its own cloud called Azure, and it the a few of the advantages are going to be that it's very secure, has a, allows the user to manage the security of their documents. It's easily scalable. You can scale up your projects on cloud. You can have global access of anytime, anywhere. There's also a hybrid cloud. You can choose to have either a public cloud, a private cloud, or just a hybrid cloud. And it's very, very flexible. So it's not just you uploading an image to cloud, but it's more than that. It's also developing projects that are accessible by everyone, and you can scale them very easily on cloud. With services like pay as you go, you don't even have to worry about um, buying for resources which you're not going to use. So Vedant is going to be talking about more about Microsoft Azure. So I'll give it over to him. Last but not the least, it's not just one photo. We can have thousands of photos on the cloud and relish all of them anytime, anywhere, securely, reliably. Share it with people all using the cloud. So cloud is massive and it's the next big technology. Over to you, Vedant. Thank you.
Thank you, Vidushi, for amazing presentation and on cloud. And I just loved it. I mean, the way you explained it, especially with the dog. I love dogs, so I loved your presentation in that order. Now let's move on to Azure. We'll jump onto Azure. Now we know about clouds. We know about Azure, but we don't know about Azure in details and how this Azure functionality works, what other services does Microsoft Azure offers to us, and how can we explore them? How can we use them, and what can we make out of it? So I'll quickly jump on to the Azure website. I'll just let's consider me as newbie exploring the website for the first time, and let's find out how I do it. And I mean, we do not have to assume myself as newbie. I guess I am one in a way. So let's jump on. I'll just quickly share my screen, and there we go. Alrighty. So let's open the website portal.azure.com. That's your go-to place. Now I have logged in. I'm already logged in with my student ambassadors account, and that's what I see. So I did work on Azure before, so that's why you see all these resources here. Resources are basically entity on Azure that you're creating and working on. So I have already created certain resources, but let's ignore that as of now, and we'll just assume that I'm here for the first time, and what will I do? Now, the best part about Azure as compared to many other cloud services is that it's very easy to navigate. That's my personal experience. It's very easy for me to find these services here and to get started. Even as a newbie, I can see a lot of services here listed down, like Azure services. And if I don't want to take any of these, I can simply click on more services, and it just list me down all the services that it offers. Now, as a part of this session, let's walk through the services that we have here. Now, we have a lot of services here, like tons of them. You can see these categories, and each category has like 20 to 30 services in them. So yeah, obviously we cannot go through one by one all the services, but we can have a quick look of all the services that we have here. Now, first we have this general section, which basically talks about more things, tools which help you with your account management here at Azure. For example, the marketplace, the service health, the free services that it offers, the templates, the cost management, what subscription are you on, what were the recent things that you created, all the resources that you created, and so on. So that's the general account management stuff. Going down to compute services. So compute basically helps you with, well, computation, as it says. And it offers one of the very popular service that often is used. A lot of services, a lot of people use that service, and it is often required as a developer. I mean, I have used it for a lot of times, which is virtual machine. Now, virtual machine is basically what it says. It's virtualization of a machine. Now, I was using a very bad computer for last few months. It took a lot of time to boot. It took a lot of time to even open a folder. And my end goal was to write a code and create a mobile app. Now that was difficult with that kind of computer because the computation was not happening. It was very slow. Now, in those cases, I can simply log on to Azure and create a virtual machine. So a virtual machine is just a machine, say a computer machine, which is created for you, but its architecture, its data center, its um, computation, its server, everything resides at Microsoft Data Center on backend. So you don't have to worry about any of those architecture. You simply decide your configuration while creating the machine from this create tab. You can select your configuration that you want based on what you want to do. And it will create a machine for you, which runs on your system, which pretends to run on your system, which is not actually running on your system. So you can do all kind of stuff, creating a mobile app or whatever services and tools you want. You can use on that machine, on that computer, but actually the computation is happening on cloud. So here you're connected with the system. So it's not using the power of your own computer, own desktop, and but still you're able to use it. That's the power of virtual machine, and that's what I did a lot of times for when I was using a very bad machine back then. Virtual machine was my go-to strategy, and it worked well. Now, another good thing about Azure, as you can see here, is, for example, if I did tell you about virtual machine, but I know I'm very bad at explaining, right? So, and you need more explanation about virtual machines. So you can just go on to here, and when you just hover over virtual machines, you see it provides you some useful link and free training from Microsoft. Isn't that amazing? So if I click on Introduction to Azure Virtual Machine, which I'm not gonna do now because that's kind of not, but if you click on that, it will just take you to that website on Microsoft Learn or Microsoft Docs and will give you the whole tutorial on how you can navigate and get started with virtual machines. What are those? What kind of configurations do you need, and how to navigate through them, how to get started, how to run them, how to get your work done via virtual machines. And that kind of like that kind of pop-up comes for any of those services that you have here, and it just gives you all the resources that you can use to learn those services. So we have in compute, we have virtual machines, we have some cloud services, some classic cloud services, some disk storage, and so on. And Kubernetes services. Kubernetes, another fancy word out there, which is very popular. A lot of people are using it. There is a lot of demand in industry for Kubernetes developer. And that's another resource that you have in here in the compute tab under Azure. So use Azure Kubernetes services to create and manage Kubernetes clusters. Azure will handle all the clustering operations, including creating, scaling, upgrading, all those terms which Vidushi told you about. And all of that you can do in here with Microsoft Azure. And again, free training on what is Kubernetes, introduction to Kubernetes, and how you can do that on Azure over here. Let's move on to the next section, which is networking. So you have all kind of networking operations. If you're into networking, this is your go-to place. It provides you with network interfaces, managing all your network loads, managing your IPs, connecting different systems, and just monitoring the usage and so on, along with firewall and connections, right? Next is wow, the storage one. So the storage section is like wow, because with big data. The reason I'm saying wow so many times, because of big data, there is so much of data all across, and it's really difficult at this point for any company or any project to have
their data just on their device, because you cannot simply manage that kind of data, that huge data on a single device, on your individual devices. And thus you need cloud services for that. And storage is the section to go to. Azure offers you with all kind of data storage options like data lakes, storage accounts, you can create them and so on. And you can manage, upgrade, scale, share, and do all of that with your data while securing, while you're not bothered about Azure handles all the security policies based on what are your requirements. Do you want your data to reside just in your own country? Well, you can select that region while creating those data resources, and you can do that. That way, the data is not going out of your country and resides in the servers in your country. And any of those security policies, if you have in mind, you can be aware of that, and you can select that while creating those resources. And there you go. You're safe, you're secure, your data is private, you are maintaining all the privacy standards while storing your data on cloud. Next is the web services. I've used this app service so many times. The Azure app service lets you create some static and functional web apps. And it's amazing, right? So your web app is created, it's on cloud, it's managing. You don't have to run your own server or run your own machine all the time to just let the web app functioning, because Azure is doing all that for you. So you can see I've created some resources before, and also you have training for that on how to create web apps. So maybe web app or app service is something, if you're new to Azure, I'll recommend to get started with, because it's fairly easy to create a web app and host it on Azure. So that can be one of the first steps to get started at. You have Power Platform, you have Azure Spring Apps, some static web apps, cognitive search, and so on. Now, I know these are just buzzwords as of now, which doesn't stand a lot of meaning, but yes, you can just hover over them and jump onto their learning resources and learn about them. We have some mobile apps, again, with app services and Power App. We have containerization, so you can create some Kubernetes containers and use them for all kind of work that you're doing as a developer or as a manager. You have databases, again, something related to storage, but not exactly that. So you also have option here to use certain functions to manage your data. For example, you have your SQL server stretch databases, or simple SQL databases, MySQL data servers that you can use to store your data and then run some queries on to get whatever you like, get all the insight or inferences from your data. So you have tons of option here with SQL virtual machines, SQL Elastic pools, SQL servers, Postgre, SQL servers, and so on, or even MongoDB if you want that. So based on all the requirements, or what kind of functions that you usually use, what kind of databases that you usually use, you can find them like Postgre, SQL, or MySQL, and you can just select them here and get started. You have analytics option with Databricks, with Power BI. I've used Power BI, and that is amazing. It provides you with great charts, all those good looking charts and figures that gives you insights over your data. And that's highly recommended to learn. And that is one of the go-to thing about Azure. There are tons of machine learning resources. Machine learning is booming, because not just because it's just another buzzword people want to learn, because there are a lot of applications of machine learning one can go for, use it and explore it and create amazing applications with it. So Azure machine learning pool with these old functionalities is of a great help. I can, if time permits, I can quickly jump on to, let me share my screen again. I can jump on to Custom Vision, which is one of the Azure services. So I can simply type customvision.ai. Okay, mistake there, customvision.ai. And I go on to, this is a cognitive services by Microsoft under Microsoft Azure. So if I sign in, it takes me to my account. I already have some projects loaded here, created here. So I'll just click on those projects and not create a new one because we don't have that much time. So if I click on say Dory reactor, so this is one of the session I did for reactors. So what you can do is just upload all the images that you have here. So it's an object detection project. Upload all the images that you have here. Our objective here is to detect Dory out of it. Just train the data. If I go back to the trained project, which has already been trained here. So if I click on finding Dory, and if I go on performance, so see, I've already trained a model which kind of detects Dory out of your images. So if I go on prediction, and if you just upload certain images, if I click on quick test, now I don't have Dory's image as of now. So, but if I upload a Dory image over here, it will just show me small boxes of detection on specific to location where Dory is located in the image and can detect Dory out of it. Now, this is just an example, right? Dory is the fish, but you can do this for, say, number plate detection or tumor detection. If you have some cell images and you want to detect a specific part of that image in order to make decision on whether disease is there or not, or if there are moving videos or moving image, you have images of um, certain cars where the cars are not following the traffic signals or breaking them. And now if you want to capture the number plate of that car. You can do that here. You can create a model which does that and just train on it and get some images, train on it and test it, and it should work. So that's the power of custom vision here. Let me switch back to our main Azure tab where we were just going through all the resources. So that was one of the applications of Azure machine learning using custom vision, but you have many more other than those. Now we'll just quickly go through, like make it a little more faster and just go through what are the other resources. You have IoT resources if you're into Internet of Things, then you can jump onto that. You have mixed reality, integration, some identity, some security things which are very important in this era. If you're into DevOps, then this is the location you want to jump onto. Some migration, monitoring your resources, management and governance of your resources, hybrid and multi-cloud, Intune, and all the other 158 resources that Azure offers, like 158 within the others tab, that is extra big, other than the ones we already went through. So that is all the resources Microsoft Azure offers to you, and and one can go for. So best strategy is to go on Microsoft Learn. So I can simply click on learn. I think it should be learn.microsoft. Learn.azure.com or Microsoft.com. I'm so bad at typing stuff. Right. So we are here on Microsoft Learn, and here you can find all the resources that you want to learn. For example, if I simply search for Azure, right? Let's just search for Azure, so I get all the resources that I have. I can click on provide me documentation. So I get this documentation about Azure. I can click on provide me training. So I get Azure on, so I get this Microsoft Learn for Azure, a learning path that I can explore, which has all these learning paths within it, some modules that I can jump onto based on my requirement and what I want to learn. For example, if I want to learn Azure SQL fundamentals, as these resources, I can just start. It has some 6 units. I can read those units, try practicing them parallelly, and just learn Azure. So it's easy to get started. It's easy to learn. You have a lot of resources. So I hope you did get some good learning out of the sessions and certain directives to jump onto and follow it for future to get started with Azure, learn more about it and practice it for your projects, and do create amazing projects out of it. And let me know. Do message me on Twitter or whatsoever, and do let me know what you did with Azure, because I'll be happy to know about it. Also, maybe just tweet about, if you do create something, maybe tweet about it and tag us, put the hashtag related to Microsoft Student Summit, and we'll be happy to see those posts and tweets coming up and some advantage out of this session, so some results out of this session. So that was me, and that was Vidushi. And thank you. I hope you liked this session.
Hey folks, welcome back from this session. Hopefully you are inspired by now trying out and using the cloud. We saw 2 different examples of how to approach the cloud, one in your everyday life, the other one, all the Azure services out there. One of the best ways out there to learn more about Azure is to check out our Student Summit Learn collection. So aka.ms student training. We have a curated collection for you. Get upskilled and learn to certify.
Yeah, and actually at this point, I can just share my experience. So I actually took the certification for Azure Fundamentals earlier this year, and I can say that really just the process of learning it is you get to learn a lot. For example, I learned a little bit more about networking, a little bit about security, what is the cloud, and the different applications of Azure, one of which would actually be Azure Static Web Apps. So that brings us to our next workshop by Thomas, who is a Microsoft product manager, as well as Ricardo, a fellow Microsoft student ambassador. So they will be going through how you can launch into the cloud with GitHub and Azure Static Web Apps. So take it away.
Excellent. Thanks, Mireille. Thanks, Chris.
All right. I like my picture there. It's kind of...
It's a placeholder, Ricardo.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, who drew that? Got almost everything right.
Excellent. So, Ricardo, what do we have in store for students today? What are we going to do as part of this workshop?
I'm actually excited for that, especially after watching so many presentations and these last 2 ones that discussed about the importance of Azure and how can we leverage it and cloud to present important stuff. So today we're building a online resume, and we're going to host that on Azure Static Web Apps. And
Exactly. I think this is the perfect project. So we discussed a lot about careers, and we also discussed about applying to jobs earlier in the career panel. Like when you're trying to apply, you're trying to differentiate yourself, you're looking for maybe a reason or a way to show off your projects and a way to show that you've had some of those skills. And so that's why we chose today to show you how to deploy your first website. Deploy your first website to Azure, and then you'll have a link you can share with friends, you can share with colleagues. And I think it'll be a really good experience.
all right, let's get our hands dirty then. Let me start presenting here.
Ricardo, before we jump into it, what are the 4 prerequisites? What are the 4 tools that we're going to be using throughout this workshop?
That is right. I was going to mention about these as well. But it's important to know that you have to have a GitHub account. And like it was explained before in the presentation, an Azure account. Students even get credits. So make sure you have these 2. Also, we're going to use Visual Studio Code, which is a very powerful tool, and Git, which is a software that will allow integration between GitHub and Visual Studio Code. I will show a little bit more of those, and it will all become clear as to how to use these tools, I hope. And
excellent.
Yeah, let's do this. Is my screen visible?
I can see it. Are you on vscode.com?
Yeah. So yeah, this is the website where you will download. If you don't have it, just click here, download. It's code.visualstudio.com, and the installation is pretty straightforward. The same thing for Git. It's git-scm.com. But if you just Google Git download, it's going to bring you to this page. So the Git installation is also pretty much straightforward. There's going to be lots and lots of options, but you just click next, 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 all the way to the end, and you should be fine. GitHub, for those of you who don't know it, also So this is the main page. Just click here, sign up if you don't have an account. If you're a student, there are also some advantages that come from using GitHub as well, the student developer pack. And I strongly encourage you guys to use those. All right. So I think I did something wrong while sharing here. Just a second. Okay, now this will work. So I have zoomed in a little bit. So this is Microsoft VS Code. I hope you guys can read it. So this is how it's going to look like the first time you get started with it. You can follow along these tutorial things. I am not going to do that. I'm just going to change to light and mark everything done. So we can work using GitHub repositories, and that's what I will be doing this presentation, but you could also open a new folder and start it here, or you could also go there if you already have a GitHub account, start your own repository and follow through. I will clone a repository that I have designed for this presentation. But this presentation is very similar to one that's contained in the workshop library. If you can also go there. It's github.com/Microsoft/workshop-library. And you can get many other interesting tutorials there as well.
So Ricardo, what you're saying is that you're going to make a copy of an existing project that you're using as a template?
Exactly.
Okay, awesome.
So what I'm doing here, when you click here, source control, and again, this will only work because I already have Git installed. So I can come here, click on this tab, source control, and I can navigate up here to this and type in a URL address. Or if you were navigating through GitHub, what would happen? It would be something like this. Let me just show. So if you had a GitHub repository already open, which you know, you could just come here, code, copy this URL, and then you could just go ahead and paste it here. So hit enter. You're going to choose a place where you want to download it. And then ask you if you want to open it. You can either open in the same window or open in a new one. And make sure you trust yourself. Just close the Get Started page. So this is how it looks like. So you have a file explorer here, and this right section, which is where the files you open are going to be displayed. You could search, you can, like the source control button, run and debug, and you can also use extensions. And this is probably one of the most powerful features on Visual Studio Code. It's going to give you many extensions that will empower your ability to code.
So Ricardo, right now, what files are we seeing? Are we missing some files?
So this first part, I'm opening an empty repository, and I'm going to walk everyone through the whole process of how to build the stuff.
Excellent, awesome.
So we're going to use HTML to build our website. And if you're not familiar at all with this, HTML is an acronym that stands for Hypertext Markup Language. But basically, it's a language designed to structure and to build websites. It functions, it works in some sort of a tree graph, if you know what that means. So basically, there are all these text tags that are nested within each other, and they will correspond to certain sections and properties within your page. So let's right-click here. I'm going to create a new file called index.html. And I will start typing in the code. So there are some shortcuts. Don't focus on those. The idea here is just to understand the structure. So like I said, there are several tabs, several tags, and you have the HTML tag, which is the main tag, and everything should be within these two tags. So I have it here opening. And when you have the same tag with this reverse slash here, you know that's closing it. And if you point out, and it indicates which one is opening, which one is closing. So the same thing with the head. I do here, I can visualize where it starts, where it closes, and the same thing with the body. But how does this get visualized? So to have an idea of what exactly is going on, I will install an extension here that will help me to visualize, which is called Code Swing. So you click these 4 squares, you click here, you type in Code Swing in the box, you install it.
So what you're doing now is installing an extension to be able to see your project live.
Exactly. So at the same time I'll type in the code, it's going to show me what's happening here. To show the visualization, I'm going to click here on View, Command Palette, and I will type in Code Swing, initialize workspace swing, and basic HTML only. So for now, I don't see anything because my HTML document is empty. So let's start adding stuff along. We want to have, let me show you the result, how this is going to be like. I have it over here. What do I want to display? So our final result, it's going to be something like that. So I have a title up here, a subtitle, and 2 bars side by side with your information. And let's start putting these elements there. So I'll start with a header. And I will have the title. I will have a line there. So the title, you can put your name here.
Okay, so Ricardo, what just happened there? How did you scaffold out your different tags?
So yeah, I've used a few shortcuts here, which are called emit. Don't like I said, if this sounds confusing at this point, don't focus on that, but focus only on the structure, and I'm going to comment each of these steps. So as you see here, I have added a header tag, which pretty much indicates that I am, like the name says, I'm adding a header here, and I'm giving an ID for it. This will be useful later on. I have also an H1 that if you mouse over it, it's going to explain it represents a section heading. The B element represents a section of text that is going to be bold. And HR is just this line here. So I already have my top section. Now I'm going to do the same things, and I will also do a magic sequence of things here just to make it faster, and I promise it will be easier to understand once I finish. And I'm putting a subtitle. I'm having 3 of those, and I'm also adding another one. Oh, it's on the right. I'm calling it main right, and I'm also adding 2 subsections with 2 tiles in it. So here's what I did again. Made a small mistake here. Let me just move this up. And now it's correct. So I have my 2 side sections. Let me put my first one is going to be the contact. And after I name these, I'll explain each of the parts of the code so it's easier for you to understand what I'm doing here.
And like you said, Ricardo, you're using some type of shortcut, or you called it Emmet abbreviation.
Yeah.
But that might be like an additional shortcut or tool. But anybody could just copy and paste the HTML or write the HTML directly too, right?
Yeah, that's totally fine. You can simply add the tags. I'm just using these shortcuts to make it faster, and also to kind of get an idea of what other possibilities are there if you want to do it this way. So the right side will have an about section and work experience. So this all looks kind of bad still, but again, I am designing these using HTML, and then later on I will use CSS, and I'll explain a little bit how that works. So right now, the way it looks like, it's not exactly a very attractive visual design. So HTML works along with something called CSS, which stands for Cascading Style Sheets. And basically, CSS is a language that we use to style web pages, to customize how they are visualized and displayed on the screen, including colors, fonts, padding, which is the space around each of the elements, their position, etc. To do that, let me first come here. I'm going to create a file called style.css, and then I will add some stuff to it. But before I add to it, I need to make sure that I make a reference up here. So I come to the head section, and I'm going to add an extra line here that will point to the CSS. Again, this is also another shortcut, but it's a link tag that will point to that file that I've mentioned here.
Okay.
And in this file,
that link tag is how you import that style.css file into the HTML.
Exactly. And now the HTML will use that file to customize like how this web page will look.
Okay. So what are
let's
you
do it.
thinking in terms of styling? Do we want to add some color? Are you planning on adding some different fonts?
So first, I need to make sure that I have my sections divided between right and left, just like it displayed in the final result here. I want it to look like that. And then I'll change the font a little bit, the sizes, so that it doesn't look so crude.
Okay. Do you think we'll have time to do that within like the
I
next
will
8 minutes we have?
Oh no, I would just post the code.
Okay, gotcha.
And then I'll just walk through it. So in here, I have, so this repository also contained the ready solution if you want to just go ahead and copy it. And this is what I'll do. I'll just copy everything. And just gonna paste there so you guys have an idea what happens. So instantly, I already have all the positions there. And all I need to do is to finish adding the texts. So for example, here, I'm going to add let me just move this to the right. So for example, it skills HTML, CSS, GitHub, VS Code, and so on. I will just go ahead and copy paste everything here so you guys have an idea, but I'm just showing how you add it. So P stands for paragraph. And again, the slides in that repository will give you a greater idea on how to do that. So let me just make it faster. And I'll just do this, so you guys have an idea of the end result. So I just put my name here, but you put your name. And again, a few things here that I want to mention. A tags are tags that are made to add links to it. So here you can link for emails. You can like add your GitHub username, LinkedIn pages. There are also lists. You can do unordered lists, which are these 2 bullet points here. You can have a bullet point summary and so on and so forth. And once you're done editing it, the next step will be to publish that to GitHub. And then for that, I will pass the time for Thomas that will explain us how do you push these things we added into VS Code into GitHub, and then how to publish these inside of Azure Static Web Apps.
Okay, excellent. Sounds good. So let me go ahead. I'll share my screen. Share screen. So Ricardo, at this point, what we have is our project on our computer, right? We have the different files. We have different HTML files. And we first need to create a project on GitHub and then back up those files, right? Okay. So what I'm going to do, I've already done this, but I'll show you how to get started with backing up your project. You'll go here to the corner and click a new repository. What's a repository? It's basically like a folder for a project. And what you'll do, you'll go ahead and enter a repository name. Hey, we're doing Student Summit resume. You want it public, private, add a description, and then you'll create the repository. And from there on, you'll have a couple quick steps to go ahead and push your local files to the remote project, this GitHub repository. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to my template. So, all right, I was able to push it to GitHub. Now comes the fun part. Now comes the fun part, because if we want to share the project with our friends or our colleagues, we have to deploy it. And what does deploy mean? Well, we have to push it to the Azure cloud so that anybody who wants to access a link can go ahead and access that link, and then they can see the project or resume that we just built. Because right now that's not possible. Okay, first steps. We're going to go to our Azure portal. That's the first place that we start. And before we saw all the different services, we're going to start with just one, and that's Azure Static Web Apps. Shameless plug. I'm a PM for Static Web Apps, and I really think it's the best way to get started with Azure and publishing your websites. So what we're going to do, we're going to create a resource. And then here, we're going to search for Static Web Apps. And once we search for Static Web Apps, we'll see that we have the Static Web App service. We're going to create a new Static Web App, and don't worry about it. You have the option to have a free Static Web App up to 10. And we have a couple things we have to fill out. First thing, resource group. No problem. A resource group is basically a folder of the different Azure services that you're going to be using. So I'm going to call this resource group Student Summit 2022. There we go. I'm going to add a name for my Static Web App, resume template. I'm going to choose free. Who doesn't like free? Central US is where I'll have my backend functions. I'll choose GitHub as where I'm deploying from. And then I'm deploying from my GitHub account. Now here is where I'm going to choose my profile. Then we come to repository. And repository, remember, we just created this. And this is the project in GitHub. Mine is called resume template. So as you can see, this is what I'm selecting down here. And finally, we select the branch. I only have one, main. That's what I'm going to be using. Now, the last step is to configure your build presets. And this is telling Static Web Apps where to find the files to deploy. So in this case, we have to select custom. And for me, within here, I have my files in the solution folder. And this is what I want to deploy to Static Web Apps. So what I'll do is in the app location, have /solution. Okay. Now we're all clear. Let's go ahead, review and create the Static Web App. Okay, reviewing seems good. Let's go and create it. Okay, so now it's deploying. So at this point, what Azure is doing is it's retrieving your files, and then it's going to make them easily accessible to anyone who has the link that you have. So here, this is the overview of my Static Web App resource. I have a couple information, but what's most important to me and what I want now at this point is the URL.
Thomas,
yeah,
would it be possible if you zoomed in a little bit?
Zooming in, absolutely. I can zoom in, definitely. Oops, maybe that's too much. Okay. So what's happening now is if we come back to our project, Azure Static Web Apps added a couple files to our repository here in our workflows. And it's not too important to focus on this here, but this is basically a file that is going to tell GitHub that every time there are changes to the repository or in the project, to push them to Static Web Apps. So that's what this little yellow dot is indicating here. It's that, hey, we're building our project and deploying it to Static Web Apps so that once that's done, all the changes are live. And now we're doing our initial build and deploy phase. Okay, so here we can see everything went good. We have a green check mark. Now we can come back to our Static Web App, click on our link. And here we go. Here we have a resume. We have a link. We can copy that link and send it to anyone. And from there on, You can send it to friends, you can send it to colleagues. And this is the magic of static web apps. It makes it so easy to have your project deployed and sync directly to GitHub. And anytime you make any changes to your GitHub project, the changes will come through and you'll see them directly on static web apps right away. So I think that's all we wanted to cover in terms of deployment. Tried to make it as easy as possible. And we really recommend that if you're getting started with a new website, use static web apps because it's the most simple way to get started on Azure. And yeah, we hope you like it. And if you have any feedback, definitely give me a call and let me know any feedback about static web apps.
Okay, thank you so much to Ricardo as well as Thomas for the presentation. So definitely I've been using Azure Static Web Apps quite a fair bit, and I just find it quite easy to use, especially with like the integration with GitHub. So if at any point of time you're curious, you want to learn about all this content at an even deeper level, one resource that we can recommend would be Microsoft Learn. So you can go to the link again, aka.ms/student summit NA for North America, and that's where we will have a list of Microsoft Learn modules and learn paths that we can recommend to you. So personally, I guess if I can like interject and give some recommendations, I love accessibility. So my favorite learning path would probably be accessibility fundamentals. Or if there are any gamers or gaming fans in the chat, there's even a gaming accessibility fundamentals, which is really fun to learn about. There's also stuff on extended reality, GitHub, Azure, Power Platform, and really just so much to learn. So any recommendations for learning paths, Chris?
Yeah, so I would just like to shortly add for Azure Static Web Apps, there's an entire learning path. I think there are 5 parts in it, so definitely check that out. Also, on the topic that you mentioned there on accessibility, our Web Dev for Beginners learning path actually has accessibility as I think the second module. I think there are 6 or 7 parts in that. But yeah, Microsoft Learn in general, great place to get started. And a big shout out to the guys here presenting this workshop. There's always a bit of a nerve when it comes to workshops and doing things live, so well done.
Yeah, so right, before we move on, we just want you to quickly put in chat, how did you find the workshops? Was the content easier or harder than you expected it to be? Just feel free to let us know. We really appreciate the feedback. So remember to type that in chat. And right now, just pass on to Chris to present what would be our final session for the entire summit.
Thank you, Mireille. Yes, we are coming up on the final topic here. We are going to talk about Imagine Cup. You know, in fact, I'm even wearing an Imagine Cup t-shirt. I don't know if you all can see that, but yeah, I'm properly themed for this evening. Imagine Cup panel, we're here from Asha as well as Beverly. They're both student ambassadors and get all your questions answered on what it's like to partake in Imagine Cup.
Thank you for introducing us. Hello everyone, my name is Asha. I go with she, her, hers pronouns. I'm a decision scientist at Pharma Consultancy with a background in computer science with concentration in applied machine learning from Northeastern University. I'm originally from Mumbai, India. And a fun fact about me, I am fluent in 4 languages, English, Gujarati, Hindi, Marathi, all widely spoken in India. And this is
So, thanks for the introduction. My name is Beverly. I go by she, her, hers. I'm actually a PhD candidate at UC Irvine studying computer engineering, and I completed my undergraduate degree at Cal State San Bernardino. So a fun fact about me is that although I've lived in California for a majority of my life, I was actually born in the Philippines. And unlike Asha, I can only speak 2 languages, which is Tagalog and English.
moving on. In 2021, I participated in Grace Hopper Celebration, which is a 3-day-long virtual conference designed to bring women in computer science and tech together. In one of the group sessions, me and Beverly, we got introduced to each other. We found that our thoughts aligned and have passion to work in the same field. We connected over LinkedIn to talk more and haven't stopped till today. We shared Our concerns on how current market of ML and AI is focused on consumer product and developing fintech industry, but not a lot of companies focused on bringing innovation to education sector. We also found out that coincidentally we both are registered individually. We both are registered for the Imagine Cup, and that's when we saw this as a sign that we can work together to provide an innovation in education. Moving on, now we are going to talk about Imagine Cup competition. Imagine Cup revolves around four main categories, that is health, lifestyle, earth, and education. And as mentioned earlier, we were inclined towards education category.
And it's important to note that the Imagine Cup is a worldwide competition. But before you compete across students globally, you actually spend your initial rounds competing at the local level. So which could be divided into these three different regions: Americas, Europe, Middle East and Africa, and finally Asia.
The brainstorming process for project selection was a little tough. In this process, we explored many technical blogs, articles, and research papers. Finally, we were able to narrow it down to four key points we wanted in our project. Enhancing edutech. We wanted to make sure our project is accessible to everybody, which is why diversity and inclusivity was one of the important elements for us. We looked at existing technology and tried to envision where they would be in the future. And that's how Happy was born.
So our project was known as CAPI, which stands for the Keyboardless ASL-Inspired Programming Interface. Using only a webcam, users are able to sign their code, providing the means for an embodied cognitive learning. It uses low-code platforms for code generation and computer vision and machine learning to process American Sign Language in order to create an immersive programming experience, while also promoting sign language as a language for professional growth. And some of the existing technologies that we explored, that we mentioned during our brainstorming process, was the fact that there was these emerging low-code platforms, and the fact that there was the introduction of VR and AR technologies that were really starting to break away from the keyboards and desktop settings.
Now let's see the difference between Epic Challenge and Imagine Cup. What to keep in mind during these rounds. In Epic Challenge, teams were supposed to submit a 3-minute long project pitch and proposal for an original technology. Once we develop our project proposal, we wanted to make sure that we are working on developing a solution that brings meaningful outcome. Before we submitted our project to Microsoft, we reached out to subject matter experts in the field. We presented them our work. We worked on the feedback they gave us. These steps really helped us and gave us the confidence to move in the direction. We ended up winning the Americas region Epic Challenge. Post that, we had received feedbacks from the Epic Challenge judges, which were very helpful to work on our product prototype. And now Beverly will walk us through the Imagine process.
So there's from the way we saw it, the Imagine Cup process can be really broken down into three components: your proposal, which should be which is essentially your business model, and of course your presentation, and of course your technology or prototype. So overall, there's a greater emphasis in identifying a technology that solves a problem in society. Again, this isn't purely like a hackathon, because you really want to be able to pitch yourself what your idea is. So in terms of the business model or project proposal, which you would have to submit for a competition, it highlights the following characteristics, such as identifying your customer product, your targeted users, use cases, your potential buyers. Essentially, you have to imagine that you are going to actually create this product with a company in mind. And part of the work is actually having to dabble into this market ecosystem. Again, really outside of what we've seen in classes and in courses, we're actually trying to really explore the idea of making this your idea into a viable product. Overall, these are all important goals to have in order to evaluate whether your idea is good enough before moving on to implementing it as a prototype. In terms of our prototype, a criteria that we targeted was making sure that the product could be released within 3 to 5 years. So really focusing on that idea of like viability. So we talked about business model, brushed upon the prototype a little bit. The last component is now the presentation. So the presentation is actually a lot more important than you'd think for this competition. It's a way for you to convey your business model by going over customers, use cases, and your technology. And of course, to adhere to the 3 main judging criteria: technology, viability, diversity, and inclusion. Yes. And so overall, from the Epic Challenge, we developed our prototype, and we were able to advance from the round 1 and moved on to round 2, the World Finals. During the World Finals, we were granted Azure credits and multiple one-on-one mentor meetings with a Microsoft MVP. So big shout out to Gustavo Velez for being our mentor and guiding us towards the Imagine Cup competition. Now, some extra last tips I want to share here is that when you're developing your prototype, make sure you have a Microsoft Azure component. And additionally, upon submission, you have to make sure that the judge will be able to run your prototype on their machine, so locally. So this can mean that if you developed a desktop application, you have to create an executable file, an exe file, or if you created a mobile app, make sure you have a mobile setup file for it. And another good tip is, if you haven't already, make sure to join the Imagine Cup Discord channel. Here, you'll be able to find teammates, attend Ask Me Anything sessions, and even learn from workshops like we saw today. The most really cool part about the Discord channel is that you can actually communicate and ask technical questions to experts, which can be anyone from being a Microsoft student ambassador, a cloud advocate, or even to direct Microsoft employees such as Pablo and Ali. Last tip, make sure to read the rules and judging criteria carefully. It's one thing to create a really cool technology, but it's another thing to make sure that you are able to convey your ideas and elaborate on the fact that your technology is an innovation that can change the world. As an outcome to our attention to detail, our enthusiasm, and our exploitation of customer discovery needs, we were awarded the world finalist for the education category. So you might think, well, the Imagine Cup competition for 2020 it's been a while, and you think, oh, for most people, they might see the competition as the end, but not for us. We've taken our idea of CAPI and applied it towards local I-Corps programs. I-Corps programs are National Science Foundation supported programs that teach those in academia, such as students, alumni, professors, to be entrepreneurs. From here, we saw that this was a very good alignment and fit to towards the skills that we were starting to develop from the Imagine Cup. So the purpose of the I-Corps program is to develop an understanding of a product market fit for our proposed technology. Excitingly, we are actually still in the process of Northeastern's I-Corps program and are actually conducting interviews. These interviews are going to be done over phone or video, and we would really appreciate it if you take the time to scan this QR code if you are interested in being interviewed by us, so that we may learn about your needs. And we are specifically interested in interviewing someone with any of the following characteristics. If you're a student, programmer, developer, a VR or AR enthusiast, neurodiverse, as in you are autistic, you have dyslexia, you just learn differently, or if you are deaf or a sign language users. So our criteria for the target market is a wide net at the moment, hence the customer discovery process. Okay, lastly, Here are some key takeaways from the competition itself. The competition isn't about winning. Throughout our journey, we developed valuable leadership and entrepreneurial skills that we wouldn't have learned otherwise. We learned to advocate for idea despite the fact that we were still figuring things out along the way.
We learn to go outside of our comfort zone. You have no idea how many cold calls, emails that we have sent out on LinkedIn to our connections, just to interview them, get to know their perspective in a way that we are working on. At the beginning of the competition, Beverly and I were very scared of doing this process, but now it's a regular habit for us. We straight away reach out to the people. We don't feel embarrassed anymore to send out an email. And it's a learning process, it's a learning curve, we would say. One thing we learned is that it is better to seek out constructive criticism and fail early on rather than realizing it later on in
Absolutely.
in the project. Yeah.
Absolutely. And overall, we learned that innovation is a iterative process. It's hardly going to be perfect, and that's exactly the point. If you look at the last year's winner, which were Reed Bionic, the team lead, Zain Samdani, may have won the competition for 2022, but he's been working on the idea of ExoHeal since 2016. Without the Imagine Cup competition, Asha and I wouldn't have met each other, nor understood all the available resources, such as iCourse, so that we would be able to fine-tune our ideas, so that we could plan for a viable product. If there's anything to take away from the Imagine Cup competition, it's that you'll be competing so that you can acquire the skills to be the next great innovator or entrepreneur. Your first idea might not be the one that changes the world, but at least you'll be one idea closer. And that's why you should join this year's Microsoft Imagine Cup.
That's about us, guys. If you have any questions, please comment in the comment section, and we are happy to help you.
And also, in the meantime, I'll be dropping some links, like I think the Microsoft rules were released, so I'll be sharing it with the Microsoft Reactor host, and I'll be sharing some links as additional resources.
What a great panel, I have to say. I feel truly inspired by Asha and Beverly and about their experience. So a really key message here that I think I heard was to dare to grow, right? Dare to put yourself out there, because you will learn so many skills, you will meet so many people. These two wouldn't even have met if it wasn't for Imagine Cup. So we're so proud that they choose to compete. And of course, we are super proud of them for reaching the world finals as well. So next up, we wanted to ask you all, what inspires you to want to enter Imagine Cup? Please type in the chat the inspiration that you might have for this. So please share with us in the comment section. Right. Also, here's some Imagine Cup tips, how you can get started. Let's go to github.com/Microsoft/Imagine Cup. These are some great resources to help you get started, get help with that idea, try to ideate and just, shape that idea so that you really can come off and partake in Imagine Cup and keep on building that innovation of yours. Remember, the best ideas are the ones that get built, right? We don't want them to get stuck in your head, but get them out there, meet others, and build that dream of yours. Mireille, do you want to take us out?
Well, okay, so as we all know, all good things must come to an end. So it's nearly time to say goodbye. It's nearly the end of the Student Summit. But hold on, don't drop off just yet, because if you remember the Imagination Collaboration activity from earlier, we actually picked out a few of the key pitches, or the pitches that we just want to share with you. So the first pitch that actually came out, so just let us know in chat if this was your idea, is to make an application which takes abnormal behavioral inputs of their pets and predict why it is happening. So actually, I've seen application something like this before, but for plants. So basically, what the team did is they made use of Azure's custom vision in order to really just train the model on like data sets of plants, like whether they are healthy, whether they are unhealthy, and really be able to detect whether the plant is having some kind of a disease and how it can be resolved. So they did this in order to help farmers in the country, but really just this idea being brought over to pets is also pretty interesting as well, because sometimes we just don't have the knowledge of what could be happening to our pets, and having something like this could really just help us along the way in our daily lives instead of having to go all the way to a vet. So the second pitch would actually be leaving your pet at home to go on with your life can be difficult. With Pet Love app and tracker, you can track your pet's moods, see their emotion in action, control pet toys, and more. So this kind of reminds me of, like, for example, baby monitoring systems. So like, for example, we all have our own life outside our homes, and sometimes we just do not have the time to monitor our pet, or we can't physically be there. So having something like this to make sure that your pet's well-being is taken care of even though you are not with them could actually function pretty well. It's a pretty practical solution. And the last pitch would be a monitoring app that monitors your pet and uses many different factors to determine its care based on its behavior. So it would take into account the pet's vitals, time of feeding, current health statistics, which is also all important because sometimes we just don't have the time, or we just can't physically be with our pet, in which case having an application like this could just really help us along. It could be more convenient for us, especially if we can't find someone to look after the pet and such. I can see someone in the YouTube comments has stated that the third pitch was there. So congratulations! It was a really, really nice idea. Oh, the person who came out with the second pitch also has spoken up in YouTube. So congratulations. So Chris, do you want to drive all this to an end?
I will. I just had a little thing with my computer there. Apologies.
I guess, Chris, you maybe can also share about what events are coming up next, so the students can know and take part.
Sorry, I seem to have some technical difficulties here.
All right, so maybe while we get that settled, I could just share a little bit about what's next, really. So first of all, on October 8th and 9th, we have our next student focus event, which is Hacktoberfest. So once the technical issues get resolved, the link for that should be on the slide. Otherwise, it may be posted in chat. And on October 13th, so that's about slightly less than a week from now, there's another event in the Code Garden. So you can all look forward to that and try to look up more details, because these are all opportunities that you can take to upskill yourself, learn about different technologies, and really just gain the exposure that you will need as a student to bring you along in your tech journey. Okay, so I guess, so Chris, are you still working on the slides?
Yeah, I've taken down the slides currently.
All right. So I guess, like, just before we wrap up, I also just want to say thank you to the audience. So don't drop off yet. The links, you will get the links for the future session soon. But thank you so much for participating, and also just a shout out to our moderator team over on the different platforms, on Facebook, on Twitch, on YouTube. And as you know, we stated the mods have stated this a couple of times, but if there's anything that you missed out on, the session is being recorded, so you can watch it on demand after that and really just like just learn the content in your own time. Yeah. So just wait a little while more for the technical issues to be resolved. And Chris, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, so I just wanted to say I hope everyone feels inspired by all the different sessions today, everything from career panel to Imagine Cup to even live workshops. So did you have a favorite section?
I guess my favorite section, so I guess the most practical for me would still be like the career panel, just because like it's so applicable. But at the same time, I really, really enjoyed the live demo by Ricardo and Thomas, just because like even just building your own resume website, or just building a website in general, it's something that really we I think a lot of us students who are learning about tech, we will do at some point, and learning how to do it with Azure Static Web Apps is cool. And not to mention just like the pure talent of being able to do a live demo so calmly. I've not really done that myself, so I can't say like whether I have the nerves to do it, but just kudos to them. So how about you, Chris?
Yeah, 100%. So I think my favorite section was probably the career panel, as well as the one on Azure Static Web Apps. I just love that service. It's so simple to get there. And I think both Thomas and Ricardo did a great job of talking about how do I create my resume, how do I deploy it out there. I also thought the career section was really, really valuable for people. They're all things that you don't know, right? So many tips, professional skills, tech skills, what should I prioritize, right?
Mm-hmm. And I guess also like regarding to the comments on YouTube, so shout out to Diraj, he's saying that they're building their first static web app. And I really just love seeing how like just this student summit, and you can see so many people, they are really taking what they have learned to move forward, like even just immediately after the summit. So that's great.
Yeah, and really great shout out from Pablo as well. Conversation doesn't stop here. There's so many ways to interact with us. This is just one of many events. Student summit, there is also a build and things like that, but we are doing these things all the time, right? Hopefully you see all the call to actions, everything that you can learn, everything from web dev to machine learning to get it started in the cloud, whether that is a virtual machine, vscode.dev, and maybe GitHub code spaces, right? There are so many technologies that Microsoft are currently doing. So I'm super, super excited for all of you, for your journey to discover everything we have.
All right, so apologies if there are any like technical difficulties. If you do need the links to the future sessions, they are in the chat, so maybe you can look at that instead if possible. And I guess with that, we can bring it to a wrap, Chris?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so thank you so much to everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thanks all.